He had been starving since childhood. He was betrayed and robbed by his own relatives. When he entered the academy, he got the worst score on the entrance exam. Kang San was a tank with less than 1% strength. But one day, a goddess appeared. He received a system that increased his divinity with every mission, and thus, he became an unshakable demon. The story begins with a girl in danger as it approaches her. Fallen on the ground, she now faces the creature that's coming to attack. Meanwhile, urgent news about the phenomenon starts spreading everywhere. The newspapers announce the sudden appearance of monsters all over the world. Inside a bus, two small children watched all the chaos from outside. Through the reflection, he sees the bodies of victims lying on the ground. Shifting to the past, he ate alone in a dirty and completely abandoned bathroom. With great anger, he clenches his fist hard and ends up breaking the mirror. Then he looks at the food that just fell on the ground and shattered. Without even thinking, he gathers the food from the floor and keeps eating quickly. Waking up at dawn, he studied and worked without any time to rest. Even tired, he kept dedicating himself to his studies throughout the entire night alone. But on exam day, he ends up feeling sick and can't finish. When he went to retake the exam, the bus he took got into an accident. Trying to leave home, his chair wheel simply breaks suddenly. Looking at the door, he notices a fallen bicycle was blocking his way. Considered a failure, he throws himself on the ground as a sign of complete defeat. Unable to get a job, he now places all his hope in a single miracle. Stepping forward, he takes the first step on his journey to finally awaken. Some awaken an innate talent, while others need to try much harder for it. Focused on this goal, he trained every day without ever stopping to rest. After so much effort, he receives his report with the terrible result, rank F. Handing over the paper, the man says he awakened without any special ability whatsoever. Holding the paper, he's left with no reaction seeing the result he just received. Moving to the present, he now faces a creature that charges full force at him. Defending the blow, his protective equipment ends up being broken during the process. On maximum alert, he faces the monster preparing for a new deadly strike. Being attacked again, he tries to defend himself from the creature's direct blow. Holding the monster's paw, he tries to prevent the next attack from hitting him. Even trying hard, he's pushed back by the creature's brute force. Gathering all his strength, he tries to resist the blow with everything he's got. Seeing the monster's mouth, he realizes the danger he's in right there. In a quick movement, he lands a solid hit right on the creature's face. With the impact of the blow, the creature is thrown far away and falls to the ground. Fallen on the ground, he screams, asking them to use the magic faster, please. Annoyed, the mage asks him to hold on and says he's already doing it. Hearing the response, he just turns his face to the side with great anger. The team consisted of a mage and two tankers who faced the monsters. During the battle, one of the tankers ends up having his arm completely broken. While they buy time, the mage was having trouble casting his spell. Without the mage's power, they had to face two monsters at the same time. Watching the creature on the ground, he prepares for the worst that can happen. Managing to finish the spell, he screams, warning everyone to move away immediately. With a smile on his face, he says he's going to finish them all now. Finally relieved, they look at the monsters still glaring at them with hatred. Smiling, he prepares and aims his powerful fire strike toward the monsters. Then, with a shout, he fires his magic in the direction of the creatures ahead. To everyone's surprise, the blow ends up hitting the ground and not the monsters. Not understanding anything, the two creatures look at the spot that was hit. Desperate, he screams, not believing what he just saw happen right in front. Yelling at the mage, he asks why he aimed the magic at the ground. At that instant, the other tanker's sword falls and slides across the floor of that place. Fallen, he's attacked by one of the creatures that pins him against the ground. Looking up, he begs for help while being held by the creature there. Seeing his friend in danger, he yells for the creature to wait a moment. Running in his direction, he shouts, saying he's already coming to help. Suddenly, he turns his face and notices a strange movement behind him. He asks the mage why he's opening a portal without warning anyone. Realizing the situation, he says that this way they're all going to end up dying. Apologizing, the mage says it's better that at least one of them survives. Annoyed, he hears the mage say he doesn't want him to die too. Grinding his teeth, he remembers the nickname everyone used to call him. Then the mage enters the portal, cowardly abandoning all his companions behind. Completely alone, he's surrounded by the portal's energy that's closing now. Meanwhile, the creature ferociously attacks the other tanker who was lying on the ground. Watching the whole scene, he's paralyzed, unable to move even a bit. The creature then advances again, landing a final blow on the man fallen there. Realizing the situation, he understands there's nothing that can be done now. Looking at the body, he remembers the risk of trying to save a shield. Without any chance, his companion ends up being defeated by the powerful creature present there. Desperate, he extends his hand, trying to reach the portal that was still open. With his hand, he tries to prevent the portal from closing right in front of him. Suddenly, he hears a voice saying he was chosen by the god. Not understanding anything, he looks around trying to figure out what's happening. Looking up, he sees a girl sitting on top of a large wall. Looking at him, the woman gives a very strange and mysterious smile on her face. Confused, He asks what that is and where the portal had gone. From afar, he shouts, asking her where the portal was just now. Taking a bit of breath, she prepares to speak with the guy there. She then shouts that he must endure a test to erase his karma. Not understanding anything, he puts his hands on his head totally without reaction now. He then questions what she meant by that about past life. Jumping from the wall, the woman advances toward him with a quick movement. Startled, he protects himself from the debris flying in his direction suddenly. When he turns around, he sees the creature emerging right behind his back. Then, she stares at him and tells him to make a very wise choice now. With its mouth wide open, the creature prepares to deliver the final blow. Using all his strength, he struggles, trying to push the creature away from him. Shifting to the past, his mother abandoned him with his drunk father lying on the floor. After his father's death, he was left alone and raised by his grandmother. Still a child, he cried while being cared for by his grandmother outside. Now an adult, he carried his grandmother on his back with a wide smile on his face. To support the family, he worked hard carrying weight at a construction site all day. Going to the hospital, a doctor tells him that his grandmother's treatment is expensive. Seeing his grandmother in bed, he decides he needs to earn a lot of money for her. Reading on his phone, he discovers that even without talent, he could become a new hunter. Watching his grandmother in bed, he prepares to do everything he can for her. Back to the present, he faces the consequences of the choice he made for money. The mage's offer appears, promising double the amount for a dangerous and deadly mission. Pinned to the ground, he has no way to escape the final attack from that fierce creature. For his grandmother, he suddenly opens his eyes, gaining a new determination. Advancing with its mouth open, the creature prepares for the final and precise blow. Holding the monster's mouth, he tries to resist with all the strength he has left. Then the other creature approaches him as he remained on the ground, completely paralyzed. Breathless, he looks at the scene terrified and without any apparent reaction yet. In a quick vision, he sees himself holding a weapon with his hands dirty with blood. Being hit by a blow, he's thrown away spitting a red liquid. Pointing at him, she says he was a demon in his past life and reincarnated. While pointing to his wound, he screams desperately, asking her to wait a bit. With her finger, she lightly touches the tip of the weapon he was holding before. Touching him, she says his current life is difficult because of the past. With its mouth open, the creature roars as it's enveloped by a different energy. Seeing the energy, he realizes that something strange is happening with his body. Surprised, he notices that the wound in his belly is healing on its own. He then asks what she said he was in his past life before. With a serious look, she reveals that he was a blood demon before this. With a smile on her face, she confirms that he was a blood demon. He asks what that is, saying she can only be talking nonsense. Walking in front of him, she says he'll never be happy without resolving his karma. Accepting the tests, he'll finally be able to live the life he always wanted to have. Appearing behind him, she shouts that the first test is about to begin. The mission is to accompany the F-rank hunter and escape from that world. Complaining a lot, he says he can't do this because he barely managed to save himself. Showing her hand, she says that's the reward for completing the mission. Meanwhile, the hunter is hit by a direct and precise blow from the creature. Seeing the scene, he runs toward the monsters to try to save the man. Noticing his arrival, the two creatures prepare for the combat to come. Running together, the monsters advance to attack with their clubs in their hands. Grabbing an item, he activates it quickly to prepare for the big battle. With magic, he prepares to make his sword much stronger now. Charging forward, he advances to attack both creatures at the same time alone. Blocking the attack, he uses his sword to defend himself from the monster's blow. Bracing himself on the ground, he manages to land a direct hit on the creature's foot. Dodging the club, he barely escapes the attack that hits the ground with force. Continuing in motion, he dodges away from the second monster's reach. Taking a direct hit, he manages to defend himself with his arm at the last instant. With a jump, he lands a powerful blow that throws the creature far away. With its body wounded, the creature screams at the large wound on its chest. Taking the chance, he climbs onto the monster's back and lands another blow. Screaming in pain, the creature reacts to the blow it just received from behind. With a shout, he tells the creature to die as he continues landing blows. Then he lands another blow, driving the weapon into the creature's chest. In a final blow, he cuts the creature with all his remaining strength. With a last breath, the creature lifts its head and lets out a final scream. After the attack, he lands on the ground as the monster's body falls. Looking at his hand, he says the first monster has finally been defeated. Being hit head-on, he's thrown away by the creature's blow. With his face wounded, he realizes the situation just got even more complicated. Looking at the body, he sees his sword got stuck in the first monster. With a serious look, he remembers he needs to risk his life to survive. Picking up a weapon from the ground, he prepares for the final battle to come. Leaping toward the monster, he shouts that he's going to end this once and for all. Defending the blow, He uses his shield and weapon to block the attack. Gripping the weapon tightly, he holds firm even with his injured hand. With its mouth open, the creature lets out a loud and very threatening roar. Being grabbed, he lands a direct hit on the monster's chest with his weapon. Using a lot of force, he keeps pushing the weapon into the giant creature. Continuing the attack, he manages to pierce the monster's thick skin with difficulty. After much effort, he finally manages to defeat the second and last creature. Very tired, he breathes deeply, trying to recover all his breath now. Without more strength, he falls to his knees on the ground and releases his weapon. Running through the scenery, he passes by the body of the creature he had defeated before. Picking up his sword again, he prepares for the next big action. Throwing an item in the air, he prepares to use a new ability. With a swift impulse, he charges forward with everything toward the last monster. Coming from behind, he lands a blow right on the creature's head. With the last monster defeated, he can finally breathe a bit more relieved. Looking around, he realizes the whole place is completely empty now. Falling to the ground, he receives the message that the test has been completed. Receiving the message, a voice calls out to him insistently, urging him to wake up immediately. Opening his eyes very slowly, he still appears to be a bit drowsy and confused. With her fist raised, she tells him to wake up now or he'll regret it big time. Sitting up suddenly, he shouts that he's already awake and finally on his feet. Handing him a paper, she says that this is the reward that was promised before. Complaining, he asks why it's on paper, leaving her pretty irritated with that. With a snap of her fingers, the paper turns into a digital screen right in front of his face. With a smile, she comments that the world has become a much better place. She warns him that he didn't pass, but he'll receive the reward anyway. Waving her hand, she says goodbye and begins to disappear from that place. Looking at the screen, he's impressed with what he just received finally. Touching the screen, he sees that the reward is a new ability to use. The ability increases his defense and regeneration for each enemy that's nearby. Having his stamina restored, his defense will still be doubled in moments of danger. Meanwhile, most hunters only have single-star abilities. Only rank D hunters or higher can use 2-star abilities or more. Celebrating a lot, he shouts that the reward was totally worth the risk. Raising his arm, he suddenly seems to have remembered something important. Remembering what she said, he realizes that he still hasn't passed the tests. Seeing the hunter on the ground, he finally remembers the mission to rescue him quickly. Running to him, he apologizes for losing focus and calls out to him. Seeing the serious injury, he realizes that the man is losing a lot of blood there. At that moment, he has an idea and understands why she gave him that. Looking at the man, he says that Kim Chun-shik is actually a lucky guy. Placing his hands on his chest, an energy begins to heal the wounds rapidly. With the power of healing, the man's injuries begin to close completely. Observing the process, he continues focused on the healing with a look of total concentration. Changing scenes, the sign indicates the hunter management department at the location. Arriving at the door, the mage complains about them calling him there in an irritating way. Not understanding, he wonders why he was called and just wants to leave. In the management room, 2 men were waiting for the arrival of an important person. Bringing our protagonist, the man asks about the raid that happened days ago. When he sees him, the mage is shocked to recognize a familiar face present there. Being surrounded by the guards, he's invited to sit down for a conversation. Trying to resist, he grabs the arm of one of the guards and shouts angrily. Immediately, one of the guards yells to the other, ordering them to capture him no matter what. Without thinking twice, he runs down the corridor trying to escape from there. Being caught, he's thrown to the ground forcefully by the hunter who was waiting for him. She informs him that abandoning companions is considered a very serious crime by everyone. He then shouts, asking if they have any proof that he abandoned them. Showing a screen, the woman prepares to reveal the whole truth about the case. In the video, she shows that the team could have handled the monsters easily, but as soon as his magic failed, he immediately fled and abandoned everyone. Shocked, he wonders how they managed to record all of that without him seeing. Meanwhile, our protagonist just turns around and leaves the place. With her back to him, the hunter watches him from the other side of that corridor. Talking with him, the guard says that the video will help in the mage's trial. She explains that without evidence, many guilty ones end up getting away with their crimes. He then reveals that he always records everything in case something unexpected happens to him. In dungeons, it's common for hunters to betray each other to keep all the reward. Without feeling guilt, the mage fled out of fear and abandoned all his companions. To nobody's surprise, the world doesn't care about their lives. Impressed, she asks why he works as such a low-rank tanker. Suggesting that he enlist, she says he would have a much better life. Hearing the answer, she comments that he seems to attract many unlucky situations. With a smile, He responds. That's why he wants to become a stronger hunter. Leaving the building, he stretches and thinks about the mage who was arrested. Walking in his direction, the man he saved suddenly appears in the way. Shouting his name, the man recognizes him from afar and runs in his direction. Kneeling on the ground, he thanks him, saying that the young man is his great benefactor. Going back a few days, he was suddenly waking up in a hospital room. With his face full of bandages, he shouts in fright as he remembers. Sitting on the bed, he realizes with relief that he was still alive by luck. In his mind, the image of the fierce creature appears roaring very loud at him. He then remembers being down while the creature was finally defeated. After the battle, he sees the young man staring at him with a very serious look. Still in the hospital, he wonders how the young man managed to save him from death. With a lost look, he tries to understand the reason the young man saved him. Then he looks to the side when he hears someone calling his name. Running in her direction, he shouts his grandmother's name with joy. Irritated, she scolds him for doing something so dangerous and risky. Kneeling in front of her, he says he's fine, but she continues scolding. Touching his face, she asks if he was trying to die in her place. Remembering the past, he sees himself still a child holding someone's hand. In a quick flashback, he hugs his grandmother, saying he wants to live a long time with her, asking him not to die. The grandmother touches his face very lovingly. Crying a lot, he hugs his grandmother tightly and thanks her for everything again. On his knees in front of her, he thanks his companion for having saved his grandmother. Returning to the present, the man kneels in front of him and thanks him very much for everything. He then says he did that because companions should always help each other. Crying with emotion, the man is impressed with the kind personality of the brave young man. Helping him stand up, he says it wasn't for a noble reason. Then he asks the man to please stop looking at him that way. Unable to tell the truth, he thinks he can't talk about the mission. Saying goodbye to the man, he turns around and starts to leave that place. With a smile, he says it's all right, and it was no big deal. Suddenly, a new message appears warning about a second and new test there. Totally shocked, he wonders how a new test appeared out of nowhere like that. To complete the mission, he must donate money to the man's grandmother. Seeing the reward, he's shocked with the details of the new and difficult mission. In despair, the man wonders on the ground why he needs to do that. Reading the mission, he sees that he needs to donate money to receive his reward. Looking at his phone, he stares at the balance of all the money he's saved in his life. Since childhood, he worked hard at various jobs to save every penny he could. Sitting alone, he reflects on the entire fortune he managed to accumulate through his effort. Even though he's determined, he still seems to hesitate a bit before making his decision. Remembering the woman, he thinks about the promise to live as he desires by erasing his karma. Ignoring the mission would result in losing the rewards and an even stronger karma. Desperate with the situation, he understands he has no choice anymore from now on. Thinking about the test, he realizes the listed rewards must be everything he'll gain. Failing now also means he'll lose the chance at a future challenge. Strong hunters guarantee enormous wealth with their great fighting power in the world. Developing his abilities, he believes he can recover the money easily after the mission. Looking at the billboard, he finally seems to have made a decision about the test. Holding his phone, he decides he'll definitely get that reward from Asman. Sitting alone, he makes a call to the administration office of that place. With the test completed, a message appears saying he passed the challenge. Somewhere else, a man calls a group of candidates to follow him. Standing in front of everyone, an instructor prepares to explain the test. He warns that everyone will enter a virtual reality training room. With a serious look, he says no complaints about the characters will be accepted. The characters were configured so that failures indicate lack of qualification from the candidate. Being candidate number 38, he prepares for the aptitude test. Walking forward, he introduces himself as a candidate for the tanker position. His mission is to stop the beast's attack and protect his allies. With his back to the gate, he receives the final details about the test. Equipped with sword and shield, he prepares for the battle that's about to begin. Looking forward, he sees a group of monsters coming in his direction. The four creatures advance together, showing their sharp and deadly teeth and claws. Outside, the instructors observe the test in progress on the screens. The man celebrates that finally, one of his stats reached level 30. With his new ability and shield, he prepares for the great battle. Facing the monsters, he sees the chance to test his new reward finally. With a determined look, he watches the creature advancing with its mouth wide open. Using his shield, he defends the creature's direct blow with great force. Pushed back, he needs to withstand the great impact of the creature's strike. Watching the other monster, he prepares for the next attack that's coming. Dodging the blow, he makes one creature end up hitting the other there. At that moment, he seizes the chance, seeing that the two creatures fell to the ground. Kneeling on the ground, he prepares to defend himself from a new attack. He realizes his character has much faster abilities and reactions now. With a smile, he shows himself much more confident for the great battle. Outside, the instructors observe everything with a very serious look. Impressed, She says he's the most excellent candidate who's ever appeared there. Continuing the battle, he defends himself from another blow of the fierce creature. The instructor watches attentively, while the virtual battle continues without any pause. Limping, the creature gets up to continue the battle, even though it's badly wounded. Suddenly, the monsters look at the allies who are in the back. Surrounded, he needs to fight with one monster in front and another right behind. The instructor notices that one of the creatures is heading toward the allies. She wonders if he realized that the test's objective is to protect the allies. With a quick movement, the creature charges full force to attack his companions. Using his ability, he manages to attract all the monster's attention to himself. Enraged, the creature turns and starts growling very loudly in his direction. Kneeling on the ground, he defends the creature's blow coming from above him. Impressed, they observe the candidate's ability during the virtual and dangerous test. The ability allows him to disperse the enemy's aggression and attract them to himself. Remembering the mission, he understands he needs to sacrifice himself and dedicate himself totally to this. A tanker's function is to protect their allies on the front line always. Because of the high risk, tankers can earn a lot of money if they're recognized. With a focused look, he knows that high risk brings high reward. With a serious face, he says this role fits perfectly with him. Fighting against the creatures, he states this is his true fighting style. At that moment, the exam ends, and a message appears warning of the time's end. Leaving the room, he now needs to focus on increasing his current rank. To be able to grow, he needs to get rid of his meat shield title. Looking back, he sees other people staring at him with a strange expression. In front of him, the test result appears as a perfect S+ to his surprise. Leaving the building, the hunters go their separate ways after the aptitude test. Many candidates walk through the hall, each one with their own test result. Analyzing the papers, the man says the results are absolutely pathetic and terrible. Complaining, he says the candidates don't know their own strength limits. He wonders why they even signed up if the battlefield is no joke. Remembering the past, he screams the name of his friend who died in battle. Suddenly, he sees an impressive S-rank result among the papers on the desk. Reading the report, he sees that the candidate demonstrated the ideal qualities of a tanker. The guy managed to protect his allies and draw the attention of all the monsters. Being called, he stands up and gets ready to go to the testing field. At the location, participants will be divided into teams of 5 for the practical test. The test requires them to clear an area of monsters to pass to the next phase. Since the participants came from different places, they don't know each other before the test. The ability to form attack teams is an essential part of the hunter test. The leader of the first team is announced, a blonde man with a serious look. For the second team, the announced leader is a guy with a nervous appearance. To decide the order, they play a round of rock, paper, scissors. Being the winner, the leader of the first team can choose his members first. Observing the candidates, he gets ready to make his first team choice. His first choice is a tanker to guarantee a solid front line. Standing beside the leader, the chosen tanker joins the first team. Desperate, the second leader needs to choose one of the remaining tankers for his team. With only 2 options, he needs to decide which tanker will join him. Our protagonist presents himself as the second and last tanker option for him. Analyzing the guy, he wonders if he's really a true tanker. Without many options, he decides to choose the guy as his team's tanker. With the teams formed, the instructor gets ready to give the final instructions. He warns that in the practical test, no one will be there to protect the candidates. Giving a final warning, he tells them to meet in 30 minutes. The first team celebrates, saying they have a very strong tanker with them. Confident, the leader of the first team tells everyone to share their specialties. Meanwhile, the second team seems to be completely lost and directionless in the test. He then asks if they're not going to put together a battle strategy. Celebrating, the team agrees that they need a plan for the test. On the other side, the instructor watches the teams with a serious and attentive look. He comments that the guy has solid fundamentals, but doesn't possess any talent. The leader of the second team regrets that he doesn't have the true talent of a hunter. The test finally begins, and the first team is called to enter the arena. Positioned on the field, the team prepares for the battle that's about to start. Suddenly, the tanker shouts for everyone to dodge a surprise attack. He then defends a direct hit from the creature with his shield in front. Shouting, the leader orders everyone to form their attack position now. 3 orcs advance together, running toward the team with their weapons in hand. Behind the shield, the tanker activates his iron body ability to protect himself. With his ability, he manages to increase his defense temporarily by 5%. Shouting, the leader orders everyone to attack while the healers take care of the team's tanker. One of the huntresses fires an arrow, hitting one of the orcs square in the chest. Taking the chance, one of the hunters advances to land a direct hit on the creature. Being struck, the orc retaliates with a powerful blow from his giant club at the team. With a serious look, the hunter prepares for a new attack against the creature. He then blocks the orc's strike, defending with his weapon in front of his body. The orc screams in pain from the blow, while the other approaches from behind. With his club, the creature prepares to land a blow from above him. The tanker notices the danger and stays on maximum alert to protect his companion. He then uses his ability, creating a large protective barrier in front of him. The creature attacks, but is prevented from advancing to the next attack movement. The tanker manages to block the blow, holding the creature's axe with his weapon. Celebrating, he prepares to continue the battle against the orc in front. Another orc raises his club, preparing a powerful blow above his head. With his ability, the tanker defends the blow and protects his ally from the attack. Thinking about the battle, he believes the tanker can hold on with the healer's support. While the team attacks, everything seems to be following exactly the plan they agreed on. Suddenly, a very loud and fierce roar startles everyone on the battlefield. With the shock, the leader turns around, not understanding what's happening back there. Coming from the front, a sound of giant footsteps starts to shake the entire ground. On the horizon, an enormous horde of orcs runs toward the team in panic. In panic, he realizes the first orcs were just scouts from the horde. Getting hit, the hunter screams in pain as the blow strikes his chest. Shouting, the leader orders everyone to fall back behind the tanker for protection. Surrounded, the tanker has to withstand hits from several orcs at once. Even with his ability, he feels the pressure and weight of the orc attacks. The healers scream at him to hold on and not fall back under any circumstances in the battle. In the sky, a drone appears and starts recording the entire battle scene. Outside, the instructor watches everything closely on the monitor in front of him. He then grabs a microphone to speak to the candidates taking the test. He explains that ranks designated by the government aren't for their honor. A rank means the hunter can be trusted with that level of ability. The tanker keeps holding the front line, enduring all the orc attacks. If he could handle everything alone, he'd be taking a test at another level. To pass the test, everyone's abilities need to reach the required level. Otherwise, the instructor warns they'll all die during the test. He understands that if the tanker falls, the battle will be lost for everyone. Shouting orders, he commands the attackers to provide support and advance to the front. One of the hunters advances and lands a direct hit on the approaching creature. In the middle of the horde, the tanker withstands the blows with help from his healers. Firing her arrows, the archer hits the orcs trying to advance on the team. The healers focus on keeping the tanker alive, while one orc uses another as a shield. Even wounded, the tanker keeps enduring the pressure from the orc attacks up front. After much fighting, the team finally manages to complete the test with total success. Seeing the tanker being carried off, the second team watches the scene from afar in shock. With frightened faces, they stare at the situation, unable to believe what happened there. The medics rush to attend to the wounded tanker, asking everyone to get out of the way. Tired and wounded, the team members receive congratulations for their hard work. On a stretcher, the tanker is taken to the waiting room to recover. Then the second team is called to proceed to the gate for the next test. Swallowing hard, the leader wonders if they'll manage to be okay in the test. Entering the gate, the team is transported to a dense, dark forest. One of the members says he needs to do better because their tanker is weak. With the team tense, each one feels the pressure of needing to try harder. Suddenly, the sound of giant footsteps draws the entire team's attention. With a frightened face, the hunter realizes something is approaching them. He shouts for everyone to take their positions, warning that something is getting close. From the trees, a small green creature charges forward, running with a weapon in hand. The leader shouts that it's a goblin as he prepares for the battle to come. On the ground, a rope trap catches the foot of one of the hunters. Irritated, he shouts that his leg is caught and he can't move properly. The instructor explains that the test doesn't provide prior information about the battle location. A giant monster appears in front of the team, causing panic and great fear. Desperate, the leader shouts for the creature not to come near them at all. Jumping toward them, the goblin tries to land a direct hit on a hunter. With his shield, the tanker blocks the attack, protecting his companion from danger. With his sword and shield, he prepares for battle against the goblins. Screaming, the creatures prepare to attack the team in front of them. He tells everyone to respond calmly, maintaining their battle formation. Two hunters crouch down, while he says that goblins are just goblins in the end. A horde of goblins advances, running with their weapons to attack the team. Facing the creatures, he prepares for combat against the goblins ahead. He notices the goblins are attacking in a coordinated and very organized way. A hobgoblin is commanding the battle, giving orders to the other goblins on the field. Facing the creatures, he says it doesn't matter, as if he had good abilities. With his new ability activated, he gains a huge boost in his powers. His defense and health regeneration increase by 12% in battle. Advancing against the goblins, he runs to attack the creatures up ahead. Surprised, the instructor watches the scene unfold on the monitor in front of him. Shouting, the leader tells the team they also need to attack the monsters. One of the hunters advances and lands a direct hit on the approaching goblin. Firing arrows, the archer helps the team deal with the goblin horde. With the death of one of them, his defense and regeneration decrease by 1%. As he advances, His regeneration keeps decreasing with each new enemy defeated. He then realizes the ability he received is much more interesting than it seemed. Suddenly, a strange noise coming from the leaves draws his attention to a danger. Shouting to move, he pushes his companion away from a surprise attack. He then defends a powerful blow with his shield, being pushed back with force. Unable to believe what he sees, he stares at the new threat with a shocked face. A giant orc emerges in front of everyone, being a threat of much higher rank. Shocked, he can't believe a blood orc appeared there. Staring at the creature, he wonders why it's in the test area. The leader says that's a rank D monster, and something is wrong. Shouting, the tanker orders everyone to fall back while the orc slowly approaches. Looking up, he freezes at the sight that appears before him. Sitting on the orc's shoulder, the woman from before suddenly appears at the location. With a strange gesture, she makes a face and stares at him with a weird look. Irritated, he wonders why Luca Bellino is there in the middle of the test. Outside, the man shouts, not understanding how a rank D monster appeared. In the control room, everyone stares at the big screen, seeing the orc's habitat in the test. He then asks the exploration team what went wrong in the field. One of the explorers says they checked the area 3 times before the test. The other confirms there was no trace of the orc at the location before. Worried, they know the participants' deaths would be a huge problem for everyone. They then decide to stop the exam and evacuate all participants from that place. The female explorer tells them to wait and observe the situation a bit more. Irritated, the man shouts that if a candidate gets hurt, they can be sued. The instructor says he understands the concern, but he's not stupid to that extent. He then guarantees he'll intervene if there's the slightest problem in the test. The man worries that innocent candidates will end up dying again because of this. With no more options, he tells the instructor to take full responsibility for the situation. With his arms crossed, the instructor says he'll pretend he didn't know anything. The woman warns that he needs to bring all team members back. He wonders if no one else can hear the voice that's in his head. If a single person dies, the karma will return, so he needs to save everyone. With a smile, she tells him to do his best and disappears from the location. At that moment, the orc advances with its club and prepares to attack the team. The blow hits the ground with force, raising a large cloud of dust there. Irritated, he wonders how anyone in a rank E exam can defeat that orc. He understands that Luca Bellino and Asmund don't want him there because of his life. The leader shouts for him to block the attack while they prepare to strike. Determined, he says there's no possibility of giving up in the first place. Running forward, he positions himself to face the giant orc head-on. The orc advances, planting its foot on the ground with force and preparing to attack. With a growl, the creature raises its axe with a look full of rage. He prepares for the blow, feeling the enormous pressure of the creature's power. The orc attacks with everything, aiming a direct and precise blow in his direction. He knows that if he's hit once, the battle will be lost for him. While he blocks the orc, the leader shouts for everyone to fight together too. The other hunters advance to help in the battle against the giant and powerful monster. One of the huntresses complains, saying that's ridiculous and asking if they're crazy. She blames the tanker, saying that if he hadn't interfered, they'd be rescued by now. In the control room, the instructor observes one of the hunters trying to flee from the test. With a serious look, the instructor observes the arrow that fell on the forest floor. The archer runs away, trying to escape from the battle and the goblins that follow him. With a determined look, he advances and strikes the creature right in the middle of the forest. Meanwhile, one of his companions runs, leaving the other behind in danger. Then he throws something on the ground, shouting for the creature to eat that. Receiving the blow to the head, the larger monster turns to face the hunter. Jumping toward the target, he prepares to connect a new attack. He manages to land a direct blow on the giant monster's leg that was there. Arriving to give support, his partner also attacks the creature with a blow. With great fury, the monster lets out a roar, showing it's not over yet. Even with his injured back, he seems to completely ignore all the pain. Realizing the situation, the hunter just says, "Damn, that couldn't be happening." Attacking with everything, the monster surprises him, and he wonders how that was possible. After that, a massive blow is dealt against him with tremendous force. Seeing the scene, his friend falls into despair and screams Kang San's name. Fallen on the ground, Kang San hears his name being shouted by one of his companions. Struggling to his feet, he uses his shield to land a strike with tremendous force. When the monster attacks, his partner manages to block the blow with his own weapon. In that instant, the hunter seems unable to withstand the force of the monster's impact. Changing scenes, a man points at the screen and yells for the other to look. His boss then asks what they should do in such a complicated situation. Back in the forest, the monster grabs his weapon with incredible strength. A system message appears, recovering part of his stamina for the battle. Even recovering a bit, he ends up coughing because of his injuries. Hearing the calls to retreat, he wonders if he should really stop now. Determined, he responds no, showing he'll keep fighting until the end. He says that stopping the orcs from passing is the key to victory. Carrying his companion, he tells her not to worry and to keep fighting. In the control room, bodies of defeated monsters appear scattered across the floor. Gathering their strength, the group prepares to attack attack the monster all at once. He shouts that the monster is also tired and asks them to hold on longer. With a growl, the creature attacks his shield with a very powerful blow. Being pushed back, he withstands the impact of the strike with his shield. Meanwhile, his companion sees the chance to attack the monster from behind. In another place, a hunter is hit squarely by an unexpected blow. The creature then throws the hunter with full force against the forest floor. After the battle, the hunter faces the giant monster that's finally fallen. At that, his companion celebrates, saying they finally managed to defeat the enemy. But suddenly the creature rises and lets out an even stronger roar. With great rage, he hurls his axes in the direction of the entire group. Desperate, his friend shouts, asking Kang-san to be very careful with that. Kang-san is then surprised by the sudden attack coming his way. He realizes the attack wasn't meant for him, but for someone else. Seeing the scene, they wonder why that person was standing exactly there. At that moment, a strike hits the ground right in front of the hunter who was alone. Remembering his mission, he knows he needs to bring everyone back safely. It was said that if someone died, the blame would be their own bad karma. Bowing down, the man sincerely apologizes for what happened during the test. He explains that the mistake was theirs and they'll offer maximum compensation. Being supported, he says they don't need to apologize, as the fault is his. Taking responsibility, the boss also apologizes for what happened at the site. Making a bow, he bends in front of the group of hunters there. Agreeing with him, the staff member calls him by the name Kang-san. Then he asks if Kang-san can spare a moment, offering a drink. Drinking the tea, he eats and says that it was way too delicious. He asks if it's true that Kang-san lived for 6 years in a monastery. Praising his battle, he says Kang-san surpassed any tanker he's ever seen. Eating a bit, he realizes that Luca Bellino's intervention wasn't a coincidence. Then he says he'd like to recruit him for his mercenary ranger team. Staring at him intently, the man says he's very impressed with all of that. He says that in the final attack, Kang-san threw himself to save his companions. Despite having a plan, his ability activated, ensuring everything worked out there. Even so, he states that's not something just anyone could have done. He promises the best treatment and asks Kang-san to join the team. Surprised, he can't believe the Special Rangers unit wants to recruit him of all people. Kang-san can only express his surprise at the unexpected invitation he received. He thinks he barely became a hunter, and already got an opportunity like that. Kang-san asks for a moment and says no, refusing the proposal right away. He thinks about the dangers and figures only a lunatic would accept a job like that. He decides he needs to think carefully, but notices something strange and wonders. Suddenly, the contract in front of him begins to change, to his complete surprise. Seeing the new mission before him, he simply says he accepts the job. Rubbing his eyes, he stares at the device in front of him with a certain concern. The screen showed his 4th trial, which was to join the feared Rangers. Turning the page, he discovers that the test would give a reward for accepting. Then he complains that Asmund didn't even let him read the contract properly. Placing the paper on the table, he simply says he accepts the offer. With a smile, the man thanks him. Surprised the answer came so quickly, but he says he accepts under the condition of acting as a simple mercenary. He thinks he'll only do the tests to avoid getting close to death. Agreeing, the man thanks him again for finally accepting the proposal. At that moment, a woman says that everything is written right there in the contract he signed. Standing up from the chair, the person says goodbye and says they're leaving now. With wide eyes, he suddenly has a totally unexpected vision of the future. Having terrible visions, he falls to the floor completely terrified by it all. At that moment, the man stands up and asks if Kang-san is feeling all right. He responds that he's fine, thinking that the scenes he saw were way too disgusting. Breathing with difficulty, he wonders if this would be that special information promised. At that moment, he feels a wave of nausea, leaving the man worried as he calls his name. A week passes, and the scene changes to a terminal with several buses parked there. Getting out of the vehicle, he reflects that the special information was about his past life. Remembering what happened, he knows that everything came to mind after accepting the test. He felt so nauseous that he could barely take it, getting really sick in the bathroom. A mission then appeared, telling him to go there and retrieve his memories. He realizes that Asmund is trying to pass on the memories of a monster to him. Walking through the snow, he follows a dungeon that isn't easily discovered by people. About to open, the dungeon would cause a truly devastating event for everyone. He understands that the memory of his past life tells him about that place. Standing at the entrance, he questions why Asmund wants so badly to reveal his old memories. Feeling the nausea again, he decides he needs to discover the cause of this feeling. Before anything else, he knows he needs to prepare a magic barrier at the location. Touching the stone, he creates the barrier to prevent the monsters from escaping from there. Secondly, he needs to secure food supplies and prepare for battle. In the complete darkness of that place, he realizes he'll need a lantern. When he finally lights it up, a skeleton suddenly appears right in front of him. Startled, he screams and lands a blow on the creature, throwing it far away. Still recovering from the shock, he stands there trying to understand what happened. At that moment, he realizes that more skeletons are approaching in his direction from the back. He understands that there's definitely something very important in that hidden dungeon. Thinking about the previous difficulty, he finds himself surrounded by 5 creatures at once. Then, one of the skeletons rapidly advances to try to land a direct hit on him. Prepared for combat, he manages to defend against the blow using his sword. With a counterattack, he lands a powerful blow that completely destroys the monster. The skeletons attack relentlessly, but they're weak against his strikes with divinity. Thanking Asmun, he wonders if he can handle the remaining monsters alone there. Stretching a bit, he notices that the feeling of nausea is finally improving. Picking up the item on the ground, he considers that it might be a gift from Asmun. After everything, he finally finds a treasure chest at the back of the cave. Getting closer, he celebrates, saying that this mission was a real gift. Thanking Asmun, he doesn't even notice the creature that suddenly emerges behind him. In the blink of an eye, he's surprised by a blow that throws him far away. Feeling the impact, he leans on his sword to try to endure the pain of the strike. Looking ahead, he sees the creature slowly approaching in his direction. He then becomes startled upon realizing that monster was a Dullahan, the knight. Without wasting time, the knight attacks with his weapon, delivering a powerful blow. Using an item, he manages to barely dodge the attack coming his way. With a sharpening scroll, he prepares to counter the enemy's strike. He tries to attack with his sword, but his blow seems to have no effect. At that moment, the knight prepares to land another blow, now from top to bottom. The weapon comes down hard, but he manages to block the strike with his sword. With his sword shattered, he realizes the sharpening scroll didn't work on it. Looking at the armor, he understands the enemy is a complete and powerful monster. On the ground and scared, he holds the remains of his totally broken sword. Seeing the new attack, he worries about his chances of surviving the monster. An ancient message about the trial appears, making him remember something important. He then turns and looks at the chest that was in the corner of the cave. With no order to overcome the test, he realizes he doesn't need to fight anymore. Understanding the chest is the reward, he decides there's no time to waste. Grabbing the prize, he prepares to flee from that place as fast as possible. He then wonders how he'll get past the monster that knows where he is. Seeing the horse breathing, he thinks if he should just run without thinking about anything. Then, a new idea comes to his mind to escape from the headless knight. He remembers something and grabs a small item that was on his belt. Throwing the item, he discovers the horse's eyes are the weak point. With the strike, the horse neighs in pain, thrashing around uncontrollably. The knight then seems not to understand what's happening with his mount now. Jumping off the horse, he prepares to attack the hunter with his bare hands. Running to escape, he dodges the knight's attack as he chases him through the cave. Taking advantage of the distraction, he keeps running while the knight tries to control his horse. Pulling the chain, the monster tries to calm his mount to return to the chase. Reaching the exit, he sees the barrier falling as everything begins to collapse. He shouts for the barrier to activate faster before it's too late. The magic barrier that blocks monsters also prevents his passage for a while. With the barrier exploding, he's thrown far away, screaming from the strong impact. Fallen in the snow, he sees the dungeon entrance was completely destroyed behind him. He realizes he doesn't need to worry about blocking that place's entrance anymore. Opening the chest, he finds a skill spirit and a bottle of water. Drinking the liquid, he acquires a new shield that fuses with his old one. The system message explains the new shield increases his defense and recovery. Holding the flask, he wonders if he should be happy about that or not. Remembering that at first everything seemed like nonsense, he now sees he's getting what he wants. Determined, he says he'll drink to get his memories, not caring about gods. Drinking the liquid, he has a vision of an injured man asking why he did that. In his memory, a shadowy silhouette appears amid a city in flames. Then, a family asks why he was killing people who were innocent there. Seeing the family on the ground, the man asks if he's going to drown the nation in blood. The shadowy figure then just questions back, asking if he wanted a reason. Staring at the injured man, the figure prepares to finally give him an answer. With his face covered in blood, he responds that he did it because he felt like it. Not understanding, the warrior is surprised by a quick strike coming in his direction. Back to the present, he's shocked by the terrible memory he just received. Kneeling in the snow, he tries to process the vision of his past life as a demon. A message then appears, saying he acquired the arts of the blood demon. Another memory emerges, showing him as a child while someone stole his brother's money. Being reprimanded, he hears that he didn't even show up when his brother was actually alive. Years later, he appears on a bus, holding a small piece of paper in his hands. The bus then suffers an accident, making him scream from the impact of the crash. With the vehicle destroyed, he and the other passengers appear fallen on the ground. Outside, several people are injured amid the chaos of the accident. Bloodied, he blames himself, realizing all of that happened because of him. Remembering his parents' death, he understands he drags people into accidents. He watches the news on TV and thinks everything is his fault since he was little. Lying in bed, he answers a call, just saying hello on the other end. A man introduces himself as Jung Min-hyuk and invites him to his talent agency company. A woman enters the place and asks how he's been since the promotion. Sitting at the table, he invites him to join his celestial management agency. Surprised by the name, he asks what this celestial thing is all about. He wonders why the #1 agency in the market would choose him of all people. Remembering the past, he knows that Min-hyuk is now at a good hunter company. Taking his drink, he simply responds that it's fine, accepting his proposal. Changing scenes, a car is about to hit 2 students on the street. Fallen on the ground, one boy asks if the other got hurt from the fall. Looking at his scraped elbow, San just responds that he's fine and it's nothing. His classmate then insults him, saying they always fall because of him. With an annoyed look, he stares at the boy who just spoke to him. Coming to defend him, a friend shouts and asks what he was saying. The boy gets startled and hears that there are things that shouldn't be said. His friend demands that he apologize right now, but San stays silent. Stuttering, he apologizes to San, who just says it's all good. Excited, his friend calls him, saying the light changed so they can go. Just then, a cop stops his friends, while he just watches everything from afar. Remembering the past, he shows a slight smile with the memory that came to mind. Back at the cafeteria, he hears that he'll finally do high-level raids now. His friend says they can help him grow, but he remains silent. With a vision of his past, he wonders if he should really become a hunter. He then says he only came there to meet his friend after a long time. Questioning Min-hyuk, he says he knows he wasn't promoted for his real abilities. He responds that San got lucky on the test, or a supervisor simply felt sorry. Then he explains that a manager can stay active with a weak hunter. He says at their age it's a bit late to dream of success, and that even the weakest raids need support teams like them. At that moment, he has another vision of his bloody past, full of deaths. With the vision, he feels a strong pain, as if the memory hurt inside him. Grabbing his head, he startles Min-hyuk, who asks what's wrong with him. Breathing with difficulty, he seems to feel a lot of pain in front of his worried friend. His friend keeps talking, but his phone suddenly vibrates on the table. On the screen, an urgent message reports about a disaster team that was deployed. Standing up, he says it was good to see him, but it's not the time for this yet. He explains he just wanted to meet him, and thanks him for everything that happened between them. Not understanding anything, his friend hands the phone back, saying it's his. With a strange look, he turns to his friend, leaving him totally confused. Just then, an emergency alert warns about the danger of an E-class creature. Scared, he says they need to get out of there now, following the crowd's direction. Crashing through the glass, a giant creature invades the cafeteria with everything it's got. The monster then attacks a person, throwing them to the ground with a strong blow. The creature keeps attacking the fallen man, who screams in pain from the strike. Trapped on the ground, the man screams desperately, begging pleas for someone to save him. Seeing the scene, a woman screams her husband's name, totally terrified by it. She begs for help while he and his friend watch the scene seriously. Yelling for him to go, his friend warns that more monsters will arrive soon. He says not to play tough guy because he'll die if he stays there. Having a vision of his past, he sees the monster preparing to attack. Seeing the man in danger, he faces the creature with a very determined look. Another memory of his past life emerges, strengthening his decision to fight there. With the blood demon technique, he prepares for the first form. Charging forward with everything, he lands a powerful blow on the creature, saving the man. After the strike, he shows a confident smile, facing the enemy on the ground. The woman runs to help her husband, while his friend watches everything shocked. He says he's not the same anymore, yelling for everyone to run from there. Turning to the people, he shouts for them to leave before more monsters arrive. Saying he'll prove it, he leaves his friend totally confused with his words. Changing scenes, an officer organizes the people who manage to flee the place. On the phone, he says San won't join, getting a harsh scolding. He confirms the proposal, but says he still doesn't have a final answer from him. Getting scolded, he hears that anyone would accept the Celestial Agency's proposal. While his boss hangs up, he just stays silent on the other end of the line. Ending the call, he just lets out a sigh, closing the stressful moment. Changing scenes, he finds himself surrounded, screaming while defending against an enemy strike. Letting out a roar, the creature charges forward with its spear in hand to attack. Meanwhile, 2 people scream desperately as they witness the surprise monster attack. Attacking the civilians, the creatures spread chaos and panic throughout the entire street. Realizing the danger, he says he needs to buy time or the situation will get worse. Activating his shield, he prepares to face the horde of monsters alone. Seeing the hunter, the creature turns and prepares for the imminent combat. Fallen on the ground, a man screams for help as he's attacked by the monster. Hidden away, a woman also begs for help, asking if anyone can do something. Surrounding the victim, the monsters prepare to deliver the final blow without mercy. Knowing that reinforcements are coming, He decides he'll hold out until they arrive. One of the monsters then advances, striking a direct blow against his body. Defending the attack, his defense increases by 20% with the effect of the trial. With his will activated, he manages to push the monster back with force. His regeneration increases, making him grip his weapon more firmly for combat. He advances and lands a precise strike, piercing through the body of one of the creatures. With the attack, the other creatures scream and prepare to attack all at once. The monster that was struck falls to the ground, defeated by his surprise attack. With the blood demon art activated, he prepares to continue fighting. His attack power increases, making his weapon stronger for the next strikes. Covered in the creature's blood, he stands still in the middle of the battlefield. With his red eyes, he seems surprised by the power he just awakened. Then he notices the imminent attack from another creature coming in his direction now. Being surrounded, he finds himself in danger against several monsters at the same time. Suddenly, a machine gun burst hits the creatures on the street dead on. A soldier appears, shooting non-stop at the monsters that were attacking the area. Even with the gunfire, the creatures remain standing, advancing against the soldiers. Positioned, another soldier keeps shooting, trying to contain the threat advancing there. With the monsters defeated, an officer shouts for everyone to cease fire immediately. Shouting orders, the officer commands the teams to begin internal entry into the location. The squads prepare to search the buildings, following their leader's orders. With the order to rescue survivors, a soldier helps a person in the rubble. Afterward, they need to eliminate all remaining monsters still in their path. Entering the building, the team of soldiers begins to search each corridor carefully. Stepping on the debris, one of them advances cautiously into the interior of the destroyed location. Sitting and tired, he rests beside a monster that was defeated. One of the soldiers is then surprised to find someone in the middle of that mess. Shocked, he realizes it was Mr. Kang-san who was there all along. Meanwhile, a soldier calls his lieutenant to see something very important there. Showing the camera footage, he explains what happened moments before their arrival. In the video, Kang-san appears surrounded by several creatures ready for the final attack. Then he's seen grabbing one of the monsters from behind to deliver a strike. With great force, he lands a blow that cuts the monster in half easily. Asking if he's a ranger, the lieutenant doesn't get a clear answer. Hearing the report, the officer just stares at the screen with a very serious expression. Relieved, he says there were no casualties, and that was thanks to him. Giving orders, he commands them to arrest the suspect, saying they can't be careless. The soldier seems to hesitate, but the officer insists the order be carried out immediately. Finding Kang-san, the soldier asks if he's alive and if he can stand up. With blurred vision, he asks who that person in front of him is. The soldier introduces himself as Kim Chun-shik, the archer he saved in the dungeon. Remembering the situation, he finally understands who that person was who helped him. He recalls the desperate man and wonders if the surgery went well. Seeing his wounds, the soldier says he needs to get out of there soon. He says he can't go, but Kang-san insists on leaving there. Desperate, the soldier watches as Kang-san walks away, staggering through the rubble. Shouting his name, he sees the hunter fall to the ground, completely without strength. He realizes that Kang-san's injuries are too severe for him to continue. Knowing he'll be arrested, he worries about the hunter's fate there. Determined, he says he won't let the person who saved his life be arrested. Looking around, he runs through the rubble to help the fallen hunter. An elderly lady wonders, asking where she could be at that moment. Looking at the bed, she asks who the person lying there is. Seeing that he woke up, she lets him know they're in the hospital recovering now. She tells him the doctor said it was a miracle he survived so well. Eating a bit, he hears that it's nothing serious and that he needs to rest. With a smile, she says that's all he needs to do for now. Changing the scene, a lady recognizes him as the young man who saved her grandson. She comments that he's an admirable person, leaving the young man just listening to everything. After hearing the compliment, he simply eats a piece of the fruit she offered. At that moment, a woman enters the room calling for her mother, who was there. In a news report, a journalist covers the E-Class Gate incident. Interviewing a soldier, the reporter asks what the actual situation was like on site. He says the hero was injured, but left the scene in a hurry. Watching the news, a woman says everyone should know about that incredible person. Embarrassed in bed, he covers himself with the sheet, feeling a bit awkward. Remembering the battle, he reflects on how dangerous that situation was. In a memory of the fight, he knows that was a choice he made himself. Attacking with its claws, the monster tries to hit him, but he manages to defend himself. Looking at the defeated monsters, he sees himself surrounded by them in the middle of the street. Realizing it didn't help, he sees the monster's attack continues non-stop. Activating the demon art, his attack power temporarily increases by 10%. Screaming in rage, another creature prepares to attack with its weapon in hand. Defending the blow, he manages to hold the creature's weapon with his own. With the smell of blood, another monster leaps to attack from above him. With red eyes, he keeps fighting, and defends another creature's strike. Jumping overhead, he prepares to attack the monster with an aerial strike. With the blow, the ferocity of the demon art is partially unleashed at that moment. Not understanding, he wonders what that is, feeling something strange happen. He realizes his body moved completely against his own will there. Then the art's effect increases his attack power by 20%. Surrounded by monsters, the art's effect keeps increasing his attack power. Completely exhausted, he feels the demon art's power was activated. At that moment, the Guardian's will restores his stamina and removes the negative effect. Back at the hospital, he thinks the Guardian's will saved him. He understands the system can't explain the power from another world. Being offered an apple, he thanks the lady who was by his side. He says it seems there really is a great person out there in the world. She tells him someone donated money for surgery, leaving him surprised by the news. He thinks it was him, while she talks about the mysterious anonymous donor. Feeling a pain in his chest, he thinks about his bank account after the donation. She says she didn't use the money, leaving him surprised by the revelation. Scheduled for next week, the surgery was postponed, to his relief. Eating, he thinks he doesn't know what he did to deserve such a blessing. Remembering the past, she reflects the blessing came from being alone in the world. Swallowing his food, he continues listening to the lady's story attentively. With a smile, he says she's qualified and hopes the surgery goes well. His faith increases, and his divinity rises by 3 points, ending the chapter there. He decides he needs to learn more about the blood demon art he possesses. Walking to the training center, he knows he needs to master the demon art. Climbing the stairs, he knows the forced environment there will definitely help. Sitting in the room, he confirms he wants the skill proficiency course. After accepting the course, he confirms he'll be training for a whole month. A guide appears and says she'll accompany him to the training location now. As he follows her, he realizes monsters of a certain rank will appear there. She explains he must wait 24 hours after defeating all 20. She warns she'll lock the door, and he just nods in agreement. Zipping up his jacket, he prepares to endure the training for a whole month. Before leaving, the guide calls him by name to give one last warning. A villain's interference forcibly increased the difficulty of his training. He discovers time inside will pass much slower than outside. His reward for surviving will be a 5-point increase in his divinity. After a month, his training period finally comes to an end. Placing the card on the table, he simply says, "Here's what they asked for." The attendant praises him for his hard work, wondering about his aura. With a smile, he thanks everyone and turns to leave. Leaving there, he goes straight to a barber to cut his hair. After a good cut, he gets a hair wash to relax. Relaxing in the water, he enjoys the moment of peace after the intense training. Then he goes to a restaurant to eat a complete and hearty meal. Satisfied, he drinks the broth straight from the plate, enjoying every last drop. Having a popsicle, he walks calmly down the street after a day of rest. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure enters and exits his apartment very quickly. Arriving home, he finds the backpack on the floor and turns on the bedroom light. Fallen on the floor, a system message warns that the trial has finally been overcome. On the street, a monster runs at high speed, spreading chaos through the city. Aiming at the target, a soldier prepares to shoot at the running creature. With its body hit, the monster lets out a roar but keeps running without stopping. Using a sign as a shield, it manages to protect itself from the incoming shots. Shooting non-stop, the soldier tries to hit the monster, but the sign protects it. The monster lets out a roar, and his companion shouts Corporal Park's name. With a makeshift shield, the monster keeps advancing against the team of soldiers. After the battle, a soldier breathes a sigh of relief with the end of the tense confrontation. Praising his partner, he says that thanks to him, everything ended very quickly. In a military truck, they prepare to return to base after the mission. On the phone, the soldier asks the person on the other end to be careful there. His friend asks if it was his younger brother, and he confirms that yes. With a smile, his friend says he must really value his brother. He denies it, but his friend says that could be a death flag. Suddenly, someone calls for him, warning that an unexpected visitor just arrived. Turning around, he asks who this visitor that just arrived would be. With a smile, a woman introduces herself as reporter Kim Min-young to him. Holding the card, he wonders why a reporter would be there at that moment. She asks about the protagonist of the incident, and he says it wasn't a big deal. With an irritated tone, he says no, and that he made it all up in the interview. She understands, but says that's exactly why she came to him to learn more. The reporter says someone who wants to hide wouldn't give an interview like that. He stays silent, wondering if this was some kind of mind game. With a smile, she asks what he thinks of a new proposal from her. Looking back, he's confused, not understanding what's happening there. A colleague calls him, saying they're leaving the reporter behind. With a smile, the reporter just watches the soldier leaving with his team. In the locker room, he seems thoughtful, still confused about the conversation he had before. Remembering the envelope, he recalls that she said it was a small gift. Sitting on the bench, he wonders what this is, holding her envelope. Opening the envelope, he finds a donation receipt with the name Kang-san. A few months earlier, he was in the hospital, recovering from battle injuries. Emotional, he cries, but soon composes himself and decides to move forward with determination. With a smile, he offers coffee to the nurses who were working hard there. They thank him, saying he saved them from sleep with the hot drink. Awkwardly, he asks about the hospital bill that still hasn't been paid. One of the nurses calls him, saying she was looking for him because of that. Desperate, he says he'll pay everything and asks them not to charge his grandmother. He promises he'll get the money no matter what he has to do. The nurse calms him down, explaining that an anonymous donor paid all the bills. Shocked by the news, he can barely believe what he just heard. Holding the receipt, he feels immense relief knowing about the unexpected help. Reading the donor's name, he wonders who this Kang-san person would be. Emotional, he cries for having received much more than he could have ever imagined. Sitting on his bed, he holds the reporter's card, thinking about his decision. With the phone buzzing, a new notification arrives for the reporter on the desk. Reading the message, she discovers he can't reveal anything about the donor. With a smile, she realizes he's the type who has no sense of reward. Now even more curious, she wonders who the hell this mysterious person is. Determined, she says she'll find the tanker no matter what happens to her. In another place, he faces the situation, ready for the next mission coming. Standing in front of the portal, he and his team prepare to enter. The group leader thanks him for coming, even with the last-minute notice. His companion comments that the scout team should have already confirmed the fog. Another hunter introduces himself, showing a bit of his personality to the group there. He realizes bad luck follows him, even after becoming stronger. Taking a deep breath, he says this isn't a problem he can't solve. With poor visibility, he suggests placing devices to locate the monsters there. Asked if they should wait, he responds they need to maintain battle formation. Showing a jar, he reveals he brought golden honey to attract the ants. With lines stretched across the ground, the team prepares for the next action. His companion wonders what kind of idiot brings snacks to a real raid. Watching him, the hunter wonders if he can really trust and follow this guy. The bell rings, and one of them asks if everything's okay since he can't see. With a serious look, he faces the fog, sensing the enemies approaching. In the dense fog, he warns they're coming, and the giant ants appear. Ready, he warns that the creatures have already arrived and positions himself for battle. Behind the rocks, the team hides, waiting for the right moment to attack. With honey on the bait, one of the ants approaches, falling into the group's trap. The other ants attack the one that ate the honey, starting a fight among themselves. With his defense boosted, he prepares to strike the ant with his sword. With a precise blow, he attacks the creature, spraying green liquid everywhere. Seeing the smaller ants, he realizes they're also ready to attack. One of the ants leaps and hits him, throwing him back with the impact. Another ant approaches from behind, attacking him by surprise without giving him a chance. With one strike, he gets rid of one, but another knocks him to the ground. He manages to get up and lands a precise blow on the ant that was attacking him. Then one of his companions shoots an arrow, helping him in the middle of the battle. The arrow hits the ant, but he's thrown far back by the impact of the blow. Fallen on the ground, the ant lets out a scream, writhing in pain from the arrow. With another sword strike, he finally manages to defeat the giant ant there. His companion attacks with an axe, finishing off the monster that was on the ground. Impressed, the team leader praises both of them for their good teamwork, but he wonders what the group's mage is doing just standing there. Suddenly, the ants begin moving toward the mage, attracted to him. With increased regeneration, he prepares to face the new horde of ants. The creatures advance in large numbers, following toward the sound the mage makes. The archer yells for everyone to be careful, not knowing where they're coming from. Terrified, the mage freezes, saying it wasn't possible for this to happen to him. One of the ants attacks a hunter, who screams in pain and falls to the ground. Fallen, he finds himself about to be attacked by the creature's giant mouth. His friend gets irritated, wondering what was happening with that guy. With a strike, he kicks the staff, pushing the mage and saving his life. Behind him, an ant prepares to attack, but he grabs it with force. With its mouth trapped, the ant can't bite the hunter's arm. Activating Iron Body, he partially enhances his body for combat. With a strong blow, he throws the ant away, freeing himself from its attack. Hearing the bell, he prepares for what's coming in the fog. Activating the shield, he draws the attention of all the monsters to himself. After defeating them all, he stands still, with his sword covered in green liquid. Breathing in relief, his companion says that seemed impossible to do before. He wonders how Kang-san got so strong in such a short time. Confused, his friend agrees, saying that's exactly what he's thinking. His companion asks him to teach him some of his special training. Remembering the energy deviation, he recalls the suffering he went through in training. The image of Asmon trying to kill him returns, bringing back the pain of training. He remembers the energy deviation warning, falling to the ground exhausted again. With a forced smile, he says he just worked hard to get stronger. Talking with his friend, he wonders if he should tell him about his bad luck. Confident, his companion says there's no reason not to trust a tanker. With the group united, he gives thanks, happy to have such a reliable team. With a serious look, he says there's one more thing to deal with there. His companion asks why the mage did absolutely nothing the whole time. He agrees, realizing the mage didn't move during the entire battle. Remembering the fight, he knows the mage didn't take a single step to help. Yelling at him, the hunter asks why he even entered the raid. The archer intervenes, asking to explain the situation on behalf of the mage. When he starts to speak, a strong tremor surprises everyone at the location. The ground shakes, scaring the team that doesn't understand what's happening. Irritated, he realizes it started again, blaming his bad luck for what happened. He understands the new variable was brought by his misfortune again. With the difficulty increased, he falls to the ground, feeling intense and strong pain. One of his companions screams in pain, scaring the rest of the team. He warns that they've fallen into the nest and that the soldier ants will attack soon. With his regeneration increasing, he prepares for the battle that's coming. In desperation, he warns that they've fallen into an ant cavern and that the attack is imminent. A status window appears, identifying the soldier ant as a rank D monster. Analyzing the situation, he concludes that the zone's rank has increased and curses Asman. Worried, he approaches his panicking companion and asks if Wubin is okay. He keeps asking what happened, wanting to know if his friend got hurt in the fall. Then Wubin turns around, starting to explain the truth to his companion. His friend reveals that Wubin has trauma because of a near-death experience. Upon hearing the explanation, the other adventurer's expression changes to pure rage. Outraged, he yells, asking why they brought someone like that on the mission, calling them crazy. Turning around, the two face their teammate after the angry outburst. While he complains that they're already in danger, Wubin can only apologize. Suddenly, a system notification informs about the increase in his defense attributes. Pointing directly at him, the man yells that everything will be his fault. Trying to control the situation, he grabs Chanwoo and asks him to calm down right now. Despite being young and strong, Chanwoo can't fight properly when he panics. Facing his companion, he says the panic is from never having faced a superior leader. But he states that he survived hundreds of crises, asking Chanwoo to trust him and fight. Asking for calm, he explains the strategy, since the ants can only come through the tunnel. Still hesitant, Chanwoo agrees to try, receiving approval from his leader. He then instructs Hanbyul to help Wubin block the smaller passage to buy time. Positioning himself at the main entrance, he prepares to face the approaching monsters. Determined, he says they'll overcome this like always, counting 35 ants in total. As the first monster emerges, he hopes that not all of them are soldier ants. With his shield raised, he receives the first strike from the advancing creature. With a strained face, he struggles to contain the monster's charge. Noticing their speed, he concludes that he needs to take down as many as possible quickly. Then he uses magic on his blade, preparing for a counterattack. Activating a second ability, he prepares to continue the offensive against the enemy. The ant hit by the blow recoils, showing signs of being wounded by the attack. Realizing that his current power isn't enough, he needs to increase his art's stats. Delivering a precise strike, he uses the monster's carcass as support for his attack. As soon as he takes down the first one, he's already preparing to face the two remaining ants. With his sword in hand, he prepares a new charge against the approaching enemies. Unleashing his power, he manages to land multiple strikes at once against all the creatures. Right after, the system informs that his attack power was temporarily increased by the effect. Even so, an even larger horde of ants continues advancing in his direction. Jumping into the middle of them, he continues delivering strikes against all the monsters around him. Notifying the status switch, his defense drops, but his attack power keeps increasing. Taking advantage of an opening in the defense, one of the creatures prepares to deliver the final blow. Being faster, he manages to land a precise strike right in the middle of the monster. With a dirty face, he confirms that he landed the attack dead on. Then the system informs that his attack power temporarily increased once again, but the horde of ants seems endless, advancing on him without stopping. Suddenly, Chanwoo appears in front and lands a powerful strike on the creatures. Continuing the movement, he lands another strike to clear the area and open a path. Unable to dodge, he's hit square on by one of the creature's strikes. Recoiling from the impact, he looks at the monster that managed to get past his defense. With his weapon, he advances, delivering a powerful strike against the ants in front of him. Even with the attack, the creature manages to resist and prepares for a new strike. Panting, he positions himself to fight against the monsters that have surrounded him. With weapon in hand, he warns that the ants have gotten through and he can't hold them alone. At that moment, an ability is activated, being directed at Chanwoo's body. Feeling the effect, Chanwoo is surprised to realize that a recovery was used on him. Yelling for Chanwoo to get control of himself, he asks if his companion wants to die. Surprised, he sees the protagonist and warns that he's also starting to panic. He then questions why he used the heal on him, telling him to heal himself first. Thanking him, he insists that the protagonist also needs to heal himself before the next fight. Ignoring the warning, Chanwoo charges forward, yelling for the monsters to bring it on. Now alone, he prepares to use the recovery ability on himself. Using the heal, he prepares to return to combat against the ant horde, but he realizes that the number of ants coming out of the tunnel doesn't seem to be decreasing. Looking ahead, he questions how many monsters still exist inside that hole. Hidden and trembling, Woobin keeps gasping, paralyzed by fear in the corner of the cave. With his eyes closed, he wonders why bad things like this only happen to him. Meanwhile, Hanbyul attacks one of the ants that managed to get past the other's defense. Returning to his friend, he grabs him and yells for Yan Woobin to pull himself together right now. Hanbyul then looks forward, determined to make his friend stop denying reality. Being held, Woobin starts screaming and struggling, completely out of his mind. Pointing to the battle, he yells, asking if Woobin can't see what's happening. He continues explaining that the other two are risking their lives to fight right now. Shouting, he says that if he's going to die, he should die alone without taking innocent people with him. After the shout, he grabs Woobin by the shoulders and calls his name to calm him down. Changing scenes, Hanbyul remembers when he talked about seeing an incredible person in the test. There, in the room, Woobin was sitting on the bed, just listening to what his friend was saying. He then wonders what it would be like to be on the same team as that person, and if it would cure his trauma. Hearing his friend's question, Woobin reflects on his trauma and how to overcome it. In an old memory, his parents were yelling for little Woobin to run without looking back. Remembering the escape, little Woobin trips and ends up falling to the ground during the rush. His mother pulls him, telling him to get up quickly because they need to keep running. Desperate, she yells for her son not to cry and to hold her hand tight, but when pulled hard, he ends up falling backwards amid the chaos. Back in the present, Woobin stands up with his face marked and an expression of determination. With his jaw clenched, he decides he's going to overcome his fear so he can help. Looking at Hanbyul, he says he'll try to fight somehow to help. Then he stands up and wields his staff, preparing to enter the combat. Determined, he states that he doesn't want anyone else to die because of him again. Gripping his staff firmly, he begins gathering his power to use an ability. With his whole body covered in power, he concentrates to launch his attack. Trying to attack, he's surprised when the system informs him that his conjuration failed. Chanwoo is also thrown away, receiving the same message that the conjuration failed. With the spell failing, Woobin tells himself he needs to concentrate more. In this moment of distraction, Hanbyul is hit square by one of the monster's strikes. With his teeth clenched, he forces himself to focus all his power. Meanwhile, the protagonist is knocked down by one of the giant ants advancing. Determined, he yells that he'll never let that happen again to anyone. Then, a new ability is conjured, releasing an immense strike in the shape of a serpent. His powerful strike advances toward all the enemies present in the cave. When the strike hits its targets, it causes massive destruction throughout the entire area. The form of the strike reveals itself, looking like a giant creature made of pure power. Several ants are hit at the same time, being completely annihilated by the attack. Surprised, Chanwoo can't react to the power that was suddenly released. He ends up being hit, being thrown away by the force of the impact. Hiding, he observes the result of that completely overwhelming attack. Fallen on the ground, the protagonist observes the scene of destruction before him. He then understands that Woobin was a mage, tormented by a trauma from the past. With his staff, he shows himself as the true key to winning that test. Finally overcoming his trauma, he faces the remaining enemies with total determination. Shouting, he orders them to destroy the holes to manage to stop the horde of ants. Seeing the remaining ants, Hanbyul fires a powerful strike to hit all of them. But amid the chaos, a giant ant emerges to attack the adventurers. The creature then advances toward Chanwoo, preparing for the final attack. To protect his friend, he uses a shield to block the monster's strike. With his sword in hand, he prepares to deliver a counterattack on the creature. He then lands a precise strike, hitting one of the giant ant's legs. Feeling the attack, the monster retreats for a moment, giving him an opening. Taking the chance, he climbs on the creature and prepares for the next strike. Meanwhile, Woobin continues using his power to keep his attack going non-stop. His strike ends up causing an explosion, which hits the cave ceiling with force. At this, he realizes the spell is too strong because of Woobin's mana. Noticing the collapse, he concludes that at this rate, everyone will be annihilated. Grabbing Chanwoo, he starts running to try to escape the place safely. Hanbyul looks up, seeing the rocks falling non-stop in his direction. Then, the entire cave ceiling collapses completely on top of all of them. With the cave destroyed, the giant ant was finally defeated in the middle of the rubble. Even injured, He uses his ability to heal Chanwoo, who complains about the situation. Then, aura recovery is activated, focusing on healing the companion's wounds. Indignant, Chanwoo yells, saying they barely know each other, and questions his attitude. But he responds that he just wanted to help and that he can wait to be healed later. Woobin apologizes for not being able to help, but he reassures him, saying everything's fine. Suddenly, he can't take the exhaustion anymore and ends up passing out right there. Sitting in front of him, a woman asks if he finally woke up. Surprised, he recognizes her, shouting Luca Bellino's name. The system informs him that he completed the 6th test and received a reward. Seeing the status window, he realizes his attributes went up 15 points in total. With a confused expression, he prepares to question that situation. Turning to her, he asks why she keeps dragging other people into his tests. She then explains that he wouldn't be able to pass without Woobin's help, since she doesn't control the others. According to her, the tests reflect complex variables and weren't made to help him grow. Getting closer, she says he's very wrong and that it's all because of his karma. Putting her hand on his head, she tells him to shut up and focus on surviving. Holding his face, she asks if he finally understood the rules of the game. Then she tells him to wake up, ordering him to stop lying around and sleep properly. Back in the cave, his companions surround him and ask if he's okay. Confused, he puts his hand on his head and asks if he passed out again. Looking around, he questions why he's still there, receiving very bad news. Looking up, Hanbyul explains that the hole is deep and difficult to climb. Not knowing what to do, Hanbyul asks if he doesn't have a jump scroll. Chanwoo complains about the suggestion, saying no one would waste money on something so useless. Revealing he has 4 of them, he leaves his teammates completely shocked by the news. Confused, Hanbyul asks why he would have something like that, and he answers it's for emergencies. He comments that carrying scrolls is no big deal, but Chanwoo finds him strange. Together, the 4 look up, preparing to use the scroll and escape. After activating the item, a trampoline appears and they jump to be launched upward. Being thrown high, they all fly out of the hole and Chanwoo holds on tight. After the rescue, the trampoline disappears, revealing itself to be a single-use item. Back at base, Kang-san reports the results to the Hunter's administration. With everything resolved, Hanbyul, Woobin, and Chanwoo are cleared of involvement in the incident. Worried, he thinks that if this happens every time, he might end up getting banned from raids. Suddenly, a hand holds his, offering some kind of comfort in that moment. Not understanding anything, he turns to the side, looking for who held his hand. Holding his hands, Woobin asks if he can join the next raid with him. Stuttering, he promises he'll work much harder to be able to contribute to the team. Hearing the request, he just gives a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. With a handshake, he confirms that they're now a team, leaving Woobin emotional. Confused by the dialect, they try to understand what his strange slang means. Taking advantage of the moment, Chanwoo asks if he really doesn't have any management agency. Saying goodbye to the group, he waves as his companions walk away and leave. Walking down the street, Chanwoo receives a call and answers the phone while walking. Meanwhile, in a huge building, the Celestial Management Agency continues with its operations. On the other line, a voice confirms they understood the orders received. Hanging up the phone, the woman lets out a long sigh, catching her colleague's attention. She then tells her that young Chanwoo asked her to go after an E-rank hunter. Questioning the decision, the colleague wonders what he could be thinking doing this. In front of the computer, she sees that Kang-san has been stuck at E-rank for a long time, but she remembers what Chanwoo said about him being better than any other hunter. Worried, she thinks that if she doesn't do it, this could become a headache later. Deciding to handle it, she notes that it's a special recommendation from Young Chanwoo for the recruit. Reading the document, a man is quite confused by the recruitment of a hunter. Seeing the file, he comes across the photo of a hunter named Kang-san. Asked about the name, he just tells his colleague it's nothing. Then a superior comments that it's strange for an E-rank to have a letter of recommendation. Accused of sucking up, the man defends himself, saying what he feels is affection. He then remembers they tried to recruit this hunter before, but ended up failing. Provoking him, his colleague says that if the hunter passes, he has no skill as a recruiter. He also remembers that last time, the recruiter couldn't even speak properly. Alone in the room, the man continues looking at the documents he received about the hunter. With the report in hand, he stares at the E-rank stamp on his evaluation. Angrily, he completely crumples the paper he was holding in his hand. Changing scenes, Kang-san trains doing 40 pull-ups in a row without any pause. Finishing the exercise, he stops in front of the bar as a couple passes nearby. Grabbing his phone, he receives a notification that a new gate just opened. Noticing it's in Wangsim-ri, he finds it strange that E-rank gates appear so frequently. He then remembers that zones of this level are normally the responsibility of army soldiers. Worried about the situation, he hopes that everyone who goes there stays safe. Meanwhile, a military truck speeds through the dark city streets. Inside the vehicle, a squad of soldiers prepares for the combat mission. Holding his weapon, One of the soldiers in the truck stays focused for the operation. Arriving at the location, the soldiers step down from the truck and prepare for the mission. Shouting orders, the leader explains that the mission is to rescue the civilians safely. He warns them to stay alert, and all the soldiers respond yes in unison. Weapon in hand, one of the soldiers starts firing at the monsters that appear. Even after taking several hits, the creature stays on its feet, ready to attack. After the fight, the bodies of the defeated monsters lie scattered across the ground. With the first area cleared, the commander shouts for everyone to advance to the next location. Entering the cave, they move forward carefully, alert to any suspicious movement. Aiming his weapon, a soldier says he can't stand seeing those monsters because of his past. Suddenly, several monster shadows appear on the walls, surrounding the entire squad. Looking up, the soldier is startled to see something moving on the cave ceiling. Then one of the creatures appears above, screaming and preparing to attack the group. In desperation, the commander yells for everyone to run and keep firing without stopping. With the noise, the ceiling begins to collapse, and he warns everyone to be careful. Then a massive rock falls on top of the creature, which roars from the impact. Dazed by the dust, one of the soldiers is caught off guard by the sudden attack. Screaming in pain, he's hit by one of the shards that flew from the collapse. Fallen on the ground, he's surrounded by two monsters, and the commander shouts his name. With its mouth full of teeth, the monster prepares to attack the fallen soldier. Desperate, the commander tries to pull the soldier out, begging him to hang on tight. Dragging himself, the soldier yells that he's not a toy and that he hates this situation. Outside, the commander orders everyone to search the surroundings with their squads. Weapon in hand, one of the soldiers walks through a dark alley and gets startled. Turning around, he notices something strange and goes on alert for a possible attack. His partner then asks if something's wrong, and the soldier stops for a moment. Turning around, he tells his partner that he'll need to break formation to handle a problem. He explains that his sister is in danger, and her location doesn't match the shelter. The soldier tries to calm him down, saying they should report to the commander and mobilize the troops, but he responds that he can't do that, since that's not their operation area. He then begs for help, promising to apologize and make it up to him if he comes back alive. Yelling at his partner, he says that going alone to the operation zone is suicide. Even with the warning, he remains silent with a determined expression on his face. Saying he has no choice, he turns around and starts running toward the mission. Seeing his friend leaving alone, he stands paralyzed, not knowing what to do. Looking at the sky, he seems to make a decision and prepares to act. Running to catch up with him, he says he'll also go along on the rescue mission. Yelling for him to come back, he reminds him of the danger, but hears about unity. With determination, he states that he'll go anywhere Corporal Park goes. Remembering Kong-san, he tells himself that he would have done the same thing. Seeing his friend's insistence, he just reacts with an expression of surprise. Without further discussion, he turns around and runs back toward his objective. Arriving there, they find a horde of monsters, and he curses the situation. Hidden, the civilians tremble with fear as the creatures approach the group. Afraid, the two women hold each other's hands, seeking support. Preparing the equipment, the soldier tells Corporal Park that the setup is complete. Pointing, he warns that the location app is indicating that spot. Hoping, he prays for his sister to be alive amid all that chaos. He then offers to be the bait, but the corporal says he'll do it himself. His partner insists, saying the corporal is more skilled in rescue missions. Speechless, he's surprised by his teammates' selfless attitude. Meanwhile, two enormous monsters prepare to attack the group of soldiers. With a single shot, the soldier manages to hit one of the monsters with his weapon. The hit creature turns and roars in pain, drawing the attention of the other monsters. With his weapon, he starts firing to attract the horde and provide cover. Drawn by the noise, the monsters advance toward the soldier to attack. Reloading his weapon, he prepares to continue shooting at the creatures. Then he starts running, and the horde of monsters follows him closely. Running through the street, he lures all the monsters away from the rescue site. Frightened by the noise, the two women embrace each other, seeking protection. Arriving at the location, he announces that rescue has arrived and asks if everyone's okay. Asking them to come up one at a time, he organizes the rescue of the civilians. Starting to pull them out of the hole, he helps the first person get out of there. At that moment, he faces the girl, who upon seeing him calls him brother desperately. Breathing hard, he stands on top of the monster he just defeated. Even exhausted, he prepares to keep fighting the remaining creatures. Suddenly, an even larger horde of monsters appears right in front of him. Surprised by their speed, he realizes he's out of ammo. With no other choice, he throws a grenade at the approaching monsters. One of the creatures leaps over the obstacle, continuing its attack on him. Determined, he struggles to buy just a little more time to escape. Running down the street, he draws the horde of monsters away from the area. Stopping in the middle of the street, he activates a detonator for his trap. As the monsters advance, a landmine waits to be triggered on the ground. The front monster ends up stepping on the trap, leaving the soldier stunned. With the explosion, the creature is thrown high into the air, far from the soldier. Even from a distance, he's hit by the blast impact and falls. Then one of the monsters appears right in front of him, preparing for the final blow. But suddenly, the creature is struck by an attack and falls to the ground. Surprised, the monster is hit by a gunshot and roars in pain from the attack. Shocked by what he sees, he realizes his friend came back to help him. Shouting, the corporal warns that they rescued the civilians and orders the soldier to run. Relieved, the soldier thanks him that everything worked out in the end. But the monsters advance, and the corporal yells for him to run faster. With no time to dodge, the soldier takes a direct hit from the monster's strike. The creature then throws him high into the air, leaving him completely defenseless. With its mouth open, the monster prepares to deliver the final blow and kill him. Landing a hit, the soldier manages to push the creature away for a brief moment, but other monsters approach, growling and surrounding the soldier fallen on the ground. From afar, the corporal screams his friend's name, desperate at the scene. Unable to get up, the soldier coughs and is watched by a shadow. Suddenly, one of the monsters leaps and lunges to attack the fallen soldier. Taking aim, the corporal curses the monsters and prepares to shoot and save him, but he realizes something is blocking his vision and he can't shoot. Running desperately, he begs Chunshik to just wait a little longer. Fallen on the ground, he wonders if he's going to die, regretting not being like Kang-san. The creature then grabs him, leaving the soldier completely wounded and defenseless. With his face covered in blood, he seems to have lost all hope of surviving. Screaming in rage, the corporal starts shooting at the monsters to save his friend. With the attack, the creatures turn and roar, focusing their attention on the shooter. Saying it's too late, he holds a detonator, ready to sacrifice himself. Desperate, the corporal screams for him not to do it, begging him to stop. But holding an item, he says it's okay, and that he can't let them both die. Suddenly, the system informs him that his physical abilities have been enhanced by an awakening. His energy is restored and all the wounds he suffered are healed instantly. Confused, the monster doesn't understand what happened, seeing the soldier recover. With his new strength, he manages to block the monster's strike without any difficulty. Striking back, he lands a hit on the creature, which roars in pain. As the monster prepares to attack, a weakness appears on its chest. Dodging the blow, he manages to escape the monster's attack by inches. With the knife in hand, he prepares for a counterattack against the creature. The monster is surprised when hit squarely by a precise strike. Seizing the opening, he advances and drives the knife into the creature's chest. Roaring in pain, the creature thrashes, trying to break free from the soldier, but the monster manages to land a hit, throwing the soldier away. He flies through the air, hurled with force by the creature's attack. In a quick flashback, the image of a shadowy silhouette with a knife appears. Seeing the scene, the corporal realizes the monsters are heading toward Chun-shik. He concludes the monsters don't see him as a threat, focusing on the other. Suddenly, the captain arrives with the squad, shouting for him to get out. Warning about the danger, he says they can't shoot because Chunshik is there. With a serious look, the captain questions the grave mistake he made. Recalling the orders, he says the corporal disobeyed and asks what he was thinking. Taking the blame, he explains that Chunshik only followed his orders and begs forgiveness. Ignoring the explanation, the captain orders everyone into formation, kneeling. Obeying the command, the soldiers prepare for combat, aiming their weapons. 4 days before, a link phenomenon caused monsters to appear in Wangsimri. Being the 7th case that month, the number of civilian casualties was very high. Investigations showed that the distance between shelters was much greater in certain areas. In response, the government denied the allegations, saying they were all unfounded. At a training field, 2 soldiers run under the strong daylight sun. Gasping, they struggle to keep running and complete the training. Shouting, the sergeant warns them they're not running right and threatens more laps. Startled, the soldier responds no and keeps running as fast as he can. The sergeant explains that everyone has problems, but abandoning your post puts everyone in danger. Shouting, he asks if the soldier finally understood the gravity of his actions. With a shout, the soldier confirms he understood and keeps running without stopping. Suddenly, a superior arrives and comments that he's working hard on discipline. Surprised, the sergeant salutes and greets his superior officer. While running, the soldier asks Corporal Park to hang on a little longer. Saying he's ready, the corporal apologizes to his colleague for what happened. Saying it's fine, he asks him not to forget his promise. With a smile, the soldier just lowers his head, a bit embarrassed. Suddenly, someone shouts for the 2 to get in the approaching vehicle. Seated in the truck, they're surprised by the battalion commander's presence. With a serious look, the commander stares at the 2 soldiers sitting in front of him. Worried, the soldier thinks the punishment won't be light because of this. He fears they might end up in the guardhouse because of their disobedience, but the commander says he's proud to have soldiers like them in the battalion. He explains that despite the law, there are exceptions, and he would have done the same. The commander then asks why they became soldiers, and the soldier reflects. Dismissing the punishment, he tells them both to rest and calls the sergeant to go. Lying on the ground, they celebrate that everything worked out for them in the end. Gasping, the soldier says he really thought he was going to die on that mission. Scolding him, the corporal warns that if he tries to sacrifice himself again, he'll die. With a smile, he rests and enjoys the moment of relief after the battle. Dragging himself, the soldier asks when he'll start calling him brother. Taking a shower, he's startled to see something strange happening to his body. Confused, he wonders what the hell is happening to him lately. Looking at his stats, he realizes all his attributes increased drastically. Even with full equipment, he didn't feel any difficulty and even had to fake exhaustion. Remembering the past, he recalls when he gave up the hunter life. Reliving the memory, he wonders why the rescue only showed up now. Getting out of the shower, he prepares to go talk to his superior about what happened. Standing at the door, he asks if he can speak with the battalion commander. He then questions why the soldiers weren't punished according to the law. The commander explains that the media is desperate to turn them both into heroes. With a smile, he says, anyone who doesn't take advantage of situations like this is an idiot. Arriving at a restaurant, the commander is guided by a woman to a table. Entering the room, he greets the person who was waiting for the meeting. With a smile, the woman receives him and invites him to sit at the table. Meanwhile, a rescue request comes up for a link breach on some terrain. A group of 5 people asks for help, and the team decides to request support. Receiving the call, Kang-san is invited to join the mission for the experience. On the other end of the line, the man explains that the danger level isn't high. Saying he understood, Kang-san grabs his bag and heads out for the mission. Recording a video, a woman prepares to leave a message for her love. She apologizes for leaving suddenly, saying she won't be in this world anymore. Interrupted, she reveals a secret and is surprised by a man who questions her. He scolds her for writing a will, and she explains she might die today. Sitting down, she laments they don't get time off even for important events like her wedding. Doubting the newbie, the man questions if he's really an E-rank hunter. She comments that the rank is already questionable and that he seems blinded by money. He wonders why the leader would bring someone like that, and she agrees. She then states that if they don't like the newbie, he'll become a target. With a fan, the man tries to dry her hair, leaving her surprised. Introducing himself, Kang-san bows and says he's looking forward to working with them. With a smile, the trio says they're also looking forward to the mission. The leader calls the two for a meeting and asks Gi-dong to look after the newbie. Left alone with him, Kang-san feels a bit awkward with the situation. He explains that despite having experience, it's his first time on a rescue. Reflecting, he realizes he can learn a lot from those high-level hunters, but Gi-dong warns him not to interfere unless he's on the brink of death. With a threatening look, he says if Kang-san gets cocky, he'll kill him. Surprised by the threat, he just agrees and stays silent. Somewhere else, an injured hunter prepares to use one of his abilities. He says he sent the rescue request, but doubts the rangers can save them. Running, one of the hunters says they need to warn the rangers about the danger. He fears that if they don't do this, everyone will die trying to save them from the horde. Remembering her words, he faces the challenge of focusing only on the tests. He reflects that the higher his rank climbs, the more difficult the tests become. To survive, he needs to get stronger, and that will drag everyone into danger. Thinking about the term ranger, he believes he can find an answer in their lives. Suddenly, the orc horde advances, shouting and preparing to attack. With clenched fists, the hunter prepares to face the creatures approaching her. She advances and lands a powerful blow, cutting a path through the monsters. The impact of her strike sends the orc horde flying back with force. Meanwhile, the other orcs advance to attack the remaining hunters. One of the hunters leaps into the air, preparing for an aerial attack against the orc. With a precise strike, he cuts off the monster's arm, making it roar in pain. Another hunter prepares to use an ability, gathering power in his hands. He launches his attack, hitting the creature directly and causing a massive explosion. Frightened, he wonders if he can survive in the middle of all that battle. He then realizes he was called, but these people didn't need a tank. Determined, he says he's not there for a joyride and needs to be useful. He advances, thinking they wouldn't have brought him if it wasn't for a reason. Shouting, he jumps in front of the attack, surprising the other hunters. Even with the impact, he manages to stay on his feet and protect his companions. Shouting, the hunter asks if he's lost his mind for doing that. He warns that if you jump in the middle of a spell, you can get caught and die. Not knowing what to do, he stands still, pulled back and a little scared. The hunter comments that dealing with a swarm is very different from a normal fight. She then advises him to stay behind them to protect himself during the battle. Turning around, she says that alone will be a great learning experience. He realizes that everyone's attributes are on a completely different level from his. Their fighting flows perfectly, as if they're all in incredible sync. Watching, he compares the battle to an army fighting another army. Then he wonders if that means there's someone commanding the orcs. Suddenly, the hunter is surprised by an attack and reacts with shock. Shouting loudly, the leader warns that plans have changed and they're going to advance. Confirming the order, Everyone prepares for the attack, including the rookie. High above, a different orc begins to conjure a strange ability with a hammer. At that moment, one of the hunters is hit by a power, his movements becoming slow. Soon after, the other hunters are also affected by the same weakening ability. Roaring with fury, the orcs begin to transform, growing larger and stronger. With their bodies changing, the creatures rise up, ready for a new attack. He then understands that an orc shaman weakened the team and strengthened the monsters. With an orc commander, he concludes that the terrain rank can't be D. Giving the order, the shaman signals for the other orcs to begin attacking. Just behind, a group of orc archers prepares to fire their arrows. Surprised by the attack, he sees one of the hunters running to intercept the arrows. With a strike, the hunter manages to deflect some arrows, but others keep coming. Using his shield, he runs forward, protecting his companion from the arrows. Surprised by the action, the hunter turns and faces the rookie who protected him. Pointing, he warns that the orc shaman is there and that it weakened the team. With his axe, the orc advances and attacks the hunter, who prepares for the fight, but she manages to hold back the monster's strike, demonstrating her superior strength. With his hand glowing, he reveals that he's already managed to nullify the weakening effect. Surprised, he realizes that these people are simply unstoppable in combat. He understands that even with a boss monster, they wouldn't have trouble winning. With a focused look, he concludes that they just need a little more time. He then warns that they need to remove the weakening nullification, leaving the hunter confused. Showing his arm, he prepares to explain his battle strategy. The leader says he'll cover him while he casts, and he guarantees his protection. With a warning, the hunter says he's removing the weakening nullification. Determined, he promises that no matter what happens, he won't let anyone get hurt. With his shield in front, he advances against the orc horde to protect them. With his eyes closed, the hunter concentrates to use his support ability. Being attacked, he struggles to withstand the blows and give the mage time. With the ability ready, he thanks Kang San for the good work. Focusing his power, he prepares to finish the battle with his own hands. Suddenly, the orcs begin to shatter, being destroyed by an invisible power. A tornado forms, dragging all the creatures and annihilating the horde completely. Standing over the creature, he finally breathes a sigh of relief after the long battle. Thanking him profusely, the man says he didn't expect everyone to make it out alive. Then the rescue worker explains that this was a variable they didn't anticipate. At that, the young man questions whether this whole situation could be because of him. Answering calmly, he says that this is actually a pretty common occurrence. He continues, saying that people should always prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, the young man just listens to everything with a very serious expression. Later that night, traffic flows normally on a busy road. Already inside the bus, he remembers those words about it being common. Thinking about his bad luck, he believes it's been following him since he was young. Ever since the world became like this, anyone can end up in a bad situation. Gripping the handle tightly, he repeats to himself that this is common. Even though it's a tragic story, it somehow seemed to comfort him. Suddenly, a bright light appears and someone outside shouts his name. Right after, a black car simply pulls up alongside the bus. Inside the car, the man asks if he's the hunter Yoon Ji-tae. Shouting from the window, he apologizes for being harsh earlier. The young man on the bus just watches, seeming a bit surprised by everything. He continues saying that even in the tension, he prioritized the survivors. Even so, he responds that he's still not good enough for that. But the driver counters, saying that he'll become an excellent ranger. Raising 3 fingers, the man states that from now on it's 3 years. Asking him to get stronger, he says he'll only wait that long. After the conversation, the black car pulls away and continues down the road. Watching the vehicle disappear, he repeats to himself that it'll be 3 years. At that, the bus driver yells at him not to stick his head out. Changing scenes, he arrives at an old street forge after some time. Once a common place, it's now been transformed into a weapon forge. Entering the place, he greets the people who were working there. Recognizing the young man, an older gentleman asks if he's San and if he's alive. Alerting the boss, the man says that San finally showed up. Turning around, the forge owner comments that it's been quite a while. Remembering the past, he always helped the young man by fixing his items for free. Being his only trusted shop, he always returned to that same place. Sharing the news, he reveals that he finally managed to become rank E. He then asks to take a look at the items he brought. Examining the sword, the blacksmith says not to worry about the repair. At that moment, one of the assistants calls Boss Yu to come see something. Saying he'll finish everything today, he asks the young man to go rest a bit. Looking at the equipment, he realizes he really used them for a very long time. He then apologizes for making the items suffer with the wrong owner. Meanwhile, outside, a woman argues about cutting the price by 30%. Arriving suddenly, the woman from the Howling Guild starts talking to Boss Yu. She explains that the other workshops are lowering their labor costs. Then she asks if he doesn't think they'll be working together for a long time. Not understanding, Boss Yu just questions what she just said. Meanwhile, inside the workshop, the cat continued sleeping peacefully. Petting the animal, he He comments that it must be pretty lonely there, but with the crisis, big companies took over, hurting the small forges. Jumping suddenly, the cat startles him and makes him scream in fright. At that, the cat leaps, knocking down one of the tools that was on the shelf. Falling toward the table, the tool strikes his sword dead on. With the strong impact of the blow, the sword blade breaks in two. Seeing his destroyed sword, he can't believe what just happened. Then a system window appears announcing that the 7th trial has begun. The mission is to use demonic art to forge a sword in 1 week. If he fails, his demonic art ability will be completely revoked. Completing the challenge, he'll gain a new skill and mental stats. Right after, a vision of a terrifying figure appears before his eyes. Reaching out, the creature grabs his arm with immense force. Asking if he also wants to kill, the creature squeezes even harder. It then insists that he use his power and hurry up. Trying to break free, he desperately screams for the creature to let him go. Back on the street, the woman says if that's how it is, she'll find another client. Right after speaking, her car peels out and speeds away at high velocity. Outraged, the other blacksmith complains that steel and mana prices have gone up. He then stands still, just staring at the guild's giant building. With a serious expression, he clenches his fist as a cat rubs against him. Getting closer, other cats also start approaching him on the street. Deciding not to overthink it, he says he'll feed the hungry cats. Upon entering the workshop, he sees the young man on the floor next to the broken sword. Seeing the shattered blade, he asks what happened and why it ended up like this. Desperate, he begs for help, saying he needs to make a sword in a week. Hearing the request, the blacksmith yells at him, telling him not to be ridiculous. Speechless, he just stares at the blacksmith after hearing the outburst. Questioning if he knows what he's saying, he asks how he'd make a sword in a week. At that moment, another man approaches, asking him to calm down and take it easy. Asking him to come, the man pulls him away from the commotion and says, "That's enough." Still irritated by the situation, Chief Yu turns around and walks away from them. Starting to explain, he says the iron needs to be heated to 1500 degrees. He then begins the first forge, starting to strike the heated metal. Afterward, he explains that it needs to be reheated to mix the materials evenly. Then he continues the process, forging the metal repeatedly many times. After repeating everything, he shows that the sword base is finally complete. He warns that he needs permission, but that he can practice in a corner. Apologizing, the young man asks if Mr. Yu got really mad at him. Reassuring the young man, he says, Mr. Yu is just very tired lately. He advises apologizing later, since there's only a week to start working. He then remembers that the order was to make it using the demonic art. Wondering if he just needs to use his mana, he observes the piece of metal. Determined to try, he prepares to use the blood demonic art. Then he begins striking the metal with the hammer, starting the process. Meanwhile, the other blacksmiths continue working hard on their own projects. From afar, the forge chief observes everything with a very focused expression. Remembering the past, a client thanks him for repairing her weapon. At that moment, a man praises him, saying he makes very good weapons. Celebrating, they sign a lifetime contract with the famous Howling Guild. With a smile, the woman says that being a craftsman is an outdated concept. She continues, saying that anyone can make items with mana stones. The other blacksmith then counters, saying the durability doesn't compare. Yelling back, she says that durability you can't measure doesn't matter. Remembering his mission, he says he needs to make the sword in a week. After the argument, the forge chief just sits alone thinking. At the end of the day, everyone says goodbye and leaves, but he stays there. Hearing the continuous sound, he just says, "That's right," and stands up. Talking about the young man, he warns that it's not just mindless hammering. Reaching the door, he asks San if he plans to hammer all night long. Looking inside, his expression changes completely, showing enormous surprise. Seeing the young man surrounded by a strange energy, he shouts his name. Worried about the scene, he shouts again, asking if he's okay. Dominated by that energy, he just repeats that he needs to kill again and again. In a memory, he reveals that he wants to kill the monster that killed his parents. He also remembers the relatives who abandoned him and the people who pitied him. He then recalls the people who insulted his parents after they were gone. With all this fury, he says he wants to kill all of them without exception. Shifting to a flashback, an old master picks up the blade and tells them to look. Analyzing the item, the old master observes the blade with great attention. He then praises the weapon, saying it's a good sword for killing people. After hearing the praise, the young blacksmith just says the word "so." Breaking the blade, the master shouts that this isn't it, and the intention is visible. He warns that his mind will be devoured, so the young man asks what to do. Telling him to do it again, the master orders him to put the intention in the blade. He then responds that he should keep trying until he finally manages to do it. Back in the present, he continues striking the metal with all his strength. Gradually, the blade seems to absorb all that energy surrounding him. At that moment, a window activates his will, removing the berserker negative status. Almost falling, he's caught by the forge chief, who calls him by name. Already seated, he says he's making a sword and asks him to overlook it. Looking at the sword, Mr. Yu is left without reaction, just observing the blade. The rank E longsword now has an attack power of +6. Seeing the special bleeding effect, the Forge Chief is totally shocked. Changing scenes, everyone heads to a restaurant to celebrate the young man's great achievement. Excited about the occasion, one of the blacksmiths cheers that the boss is paying for meat. Eating together, they say it's been a long time since they've eaten and tell San to enjoy. Watching the boss, he notices his expression looks even worse than before. Sitting at the table, Boss Yu continues with a very serious and quite pensive face. He reflects that the young man strengthened the sword without using a single mana stone. Remembering that moment, he thinks about how the young man seemed to have no skill. Realizing the potential, he knows that technique could shake up the entire industry. Worried, he wonders what else is needed to complete the demonic sword. Suddenly, one of the older blacksmiths yells at all of them at the table. He tells them to stop daydreaming and just eat the meat in front of them. Tasting the food, the young man praises the boss, saying it's very delicious. Then he continues eating, stuffing his mouth with the food that was on the table. Gathering courage, he turns and calls out to Mr. Yu to speak with him. Apologizing for what happened, he asks if he can ask the boss for a favor. The next day, he delivers the sword saying everything is ready as requested. Thanking him profusely, he takes the weapon believing it will better withstand the power. Noticing right away, he sees that the sword looks the same, but it's different. So he decides to activate the demonic blood art again to continue the process. At this, the others are startled by the scene, but the boss says everything is fine. Emerging again, the creature says it knew he needed its power. Insisting on that, it says he should kill the people who laughed at him. Feeling like he's being swallowed, he tries to stay calm to overcome it. At that moment, the boss shouts for him to focus only on his sword. Explaining the situation, he says there should only be him and his sword. Saying that's how you forge, he watches him continue the work. Gripping the tool tightly, he seems much more focused than before. Then he strikes the metal again with incredible force and precision. Noticing the difference, he sees that the intent is no longer leaking from the blade. Concentrated on the strike, he finally shouts that he can see how it's done. Focused on the hammer, he feels the metal telling him where he should strike. Watching the work, the two blacksmiths remain standing with a serious expression. After a good while, night arrives and the forge remains lit. Then a system window alerts him that he passed the 7th trial. Falling exhausted, he complains about having hammered so much to improve his skills. After everything, the boss asks if he finally finished what he started. With a power increase of 19, the new sword has a bleeding effect. In disbelief, they wonder how San did that just with the hammer. He himself questions whether something like that would really be possible to do. Without saying a word, Boss Yu just stares at the young man seriously. Grabbing the boss's arm, he holds it firmly before he leaves. Caught by surprise, the boss turns without understanding his attitude. Still panting, he calls out to the sir and kneels before the boss. Saying the ability suits him, the young man transfers a special skill. With the transmission complete, the ability is shared between the two men. He then reflects on the miraculous ability he just received from the gods. Questioning himself, he thinks a chosen blacksmith should be like him, not San, someone who hammers every day in the hot furnace until their body burns. Thinking about this again, he admits to himself how pathetic he feels. Changing scenes, a man in green faces a giant stone monster. Frightened by the creature, he wonders if that could be a necromancer. Fallen on the ground, the blonde man shouts that this can't be right. Then the man is thrown backward, looking up with great surprise. In another place, a man complains about his arm and the test he's taking. Meanwhile, two people observe everything from above, on an upper floor. Back to the scene, doctors run with a man on a stretcher questioning the procedure. Screaming on the stretcher, he threatens to blow everything up since he's the one responsible for the place. A man then bows, questioning why they dragged someone into the fight. Continuing bowed on the ground, he addresses the other and calls him father. Standing in front of him, the man in the suit simply asks if he failed. Telling him to never talk about becoming a hunter again, the father scolds him harshly. Completely desperate, the young man remains on the ground with nothing to do. At this, he begs for one more chance, saying it will be the last time. Promising he will obey, he asks to at least choose the members. But the father calls him pathetic, stating that he will fail again. With nothing to say, he remains on the ground, just listening to everything in silence. Then he gives one last chance, ordering him to gather the members in 3 days. After the harsh conversation, the older man turns and walks away. Now with his subordinate, he orders them to increase the difficulty level. He tells them to raise it so much that not even an A rank can pass the test. Kneeling on the ground, he says this is an ability the master should have. Surprised by the gesture, The Forge chief asks him to wait a moment. Refusing the offer, he says it's a gift that found its way, but he insists, saying he'll never handle the power that well. He then explains that nothing would be possible without the sword the chief made. Hearing the conversation, the other blacksmith at the forge seems to breathe more easily, so he suggests the two make a contract to avoid any awkwardness. At that moment, a skeletal figure appears with a magical contract in its hands. The creature asks if both parties agree with everything written. Agreeing to the terms, they accept the contract that has a severe penalty. After the signatures, the contract is magically completed before their eyes. Thanking the young man, he promises he'll master the technique to avoid embarrassment. With a smile, he says, if everything goes well, things will work out too. Changing scenes, he runs hurriedly through the streets of that same city. Arriving at the forge, a person asks if Mr. Kang-san is around. Out of breath, the woman explains she came at Mr. Yan Wubin's request. Checking his phone, he's startled to see the missed calls during his break. Being focused on the sword, he ended up not noticing the multiple contact attempts. Extending her hand, the woman invites him to come along because it's urgent. Right after, a yellow taxi stops right in front of them on the street. Arriving at the destination, he gets out of the car and observes the unfamiliar place. Recognizing the control center, he asks if Mr. Wubin is there. Following down the corridor, he walks toward the floor that was indicated. Suddenly, he stops and looks ahead with a surprised expression. Meeting two acquaintances, he hears them calling his name in the hallway. Surprised, they ask what happened and why they met there. Then the guy asks if Wubin called him for some serious injury. Feeling relieved with the answer, he hears someone call his name from afar. Getting closer, Wubin says it was hard to reach him. At that moment, he notices the person behind him, getting quite surprised by the visit. Reacting with surprise, he's left speechless, seeing who just arrived. Recognizing the center's director, he wonders why he would be there. With a serious expression, the director says it's been a good while. Then he identifies the other two guys who also greet the director respectfully. Turning his face, he now directs his gaze to our protagonist present there. Not understanding the reason, the guy just remains standing with a confused expression. He then reveals that everyone there is rank E, but one of them recently moved up. Thanking everyone for coming, Wubin says he hoped no one would miss the call. Questioning the reason, they ask why they were called to that center suddenly. With arms crossed, the director just watches the guy's conversation in silence. Wubin comments that these are the companions he gathered for the interesting test. Complaining about the man, the other guy questions what his problem is just for being chief. Confused by the situation, he asks what kind of test that was they mentioned. Understanding everything, he discovers that the center's chief is actually the father. Asking to see the video, they gather to work out a good strategy. Asking them to explain what happened, he sits down to hear the test details. He begins, saying the terrain had water and cliffs with many monsters. The team was made up of a mage, tanks, and warriors of various ranks. Then the group's mage prepares to use a lightning strike. With the strike, several enemies are hit and begin to be incinerated. Quite determined, he tells himself he can handle the situation. Using another ability, he fires an elemental explosion that hits several monsters. One of the warriors comments that he's strong, but questions if he can pass. The strategy was to hold the front line so he could use his magic. But after 10 minutes, a huge and strong creature emerges on the field. Suddenly, a troop of trolls appears and overwhelms all their tanks. Yelling to reorganize, they try to buy time for the magic to be used. At that moment, the test's difficulty increases, and one of the warriors is hit. Moreover, the monster's leader grabs his staff and prepares to attack. The monsters are then enveloped by energy and become much stronger. Finishing the explanation, he says that was exactly what happened in the test. Standing up, Wubin says he really wants to become a hunter and won't give up. Then he bows, desperately begging for the help of the entire new group. Lowering his head, the guy thinks for a moment about that plea for help. Thinking about the mage, he remembers how powerful he was in the test. Losing a mage like him would be a great loss to everyone in that world. Meanwhile, up above, the director watched their entire conversation attentively. With a very serious expression, he continues just watching the group in silence. Taking the lead, he says he'll take care of all the tanks at the front. The other guy then points to himself, asking him to keep that in mind. Giving the orders, he tells the mage to focus on high-power spells. Encouraging everyone, he says they shouldn't panic and should hunt together. Charging toward the group, the goblins arrive screaming and ready to attack. Facing the enemies, the group prepares for the combat about to begin. Then the Guardian's will activates, increasing his defense and regeneration. Ready for impact, he focuses entirely on using the Shield of Trials. Using his shield, he manages to hold back the horde of monsters advancing against him. While he holds the front, the other group members prepare to attack. Defending the direct attack, he manages to block the monster's strike with his shield. After defending, he counterattacks with a blow, throwing the monster far away. Seeing the situation, he says the number of goblins is insane, but it's in the plan. Noticing the difficulty, he comments that a real battle is quite different. Then he shouts to his companion, telling him to follow the agreed plan. Being surrounded by enemies, he screams while trying to defend against the attacks. With a strong shield strike, he throws several monsters away at once. Right behind, the mage begins to prepare to use one of his spells. With a serious expression, he focuses entirely to release his great power. Launching a fire strike, the mage hits several of the monsters dead on. Watching from above, the director and his assistant observe the battle attentively. Even amid the fire, he continues advancing without stopping in the battle. With a serious expression, he now waits for the next monster to approach. Realizing his ability didn't activate, he goes on high alert. Seeing something approaching, he quickly prepares for a new attack. Shouting to the mage, he warns him to be careful with what's coming. Then a huge rock is thrown in his companion's direction. With a precise strike, the other guy destroys the rock to pieces. After defending the attack, the two stay alert for the next move. Seeing his friend's action, he seems to breathe a bit more relieved. Then he comments that wasn't in the video, and it would be a problem. Telling him to stay behind, he warns not to stop using magic. With a smile, the mage says he understood the message perfectly well. Then the Guardian's will activates, increasing his defense again. With the bonus activated, several trolls appear while he's surrounded by monsters. Meanwhile, the group's archer prepares to shoot with his bow. Aiming upward, he pulls the string, preparing one of his arrows. The creatures scream and prepare to descend and attack the whole group. Totally focused, he continues aiming at the target with great precision. Firing a shot, his arrow goes spinning at high speed. The arrow continues its path, flying toward the monsters on the cliff. Hitting dead center, the strike hits one of the creatures, which screams in pain. The monster then falls to the ground while the other is also hit. Meanwhile, he defends against a blow with his sword and shield. His strike cuts the monster, closing its mouth and also its body. He then takes the chance to land a blow on the monster's leg. Being thrown far away, he says this is a very serious problem. He realizes the monster needs to be defeated with a single blow. Seeing the goblins, he thinks either attack the weak points or wait. Deciding to increase his power, he charges at the monsters there. Defending himself with the shield, he blocks the strike of the monster in front of him. Suddenly, a giant troll attacks him with a blow from above. Screaming loudly, the creature brings down its weapon with full force in his direction. With a surprised expression, the monster seems not to understand what happened. Then he activates the demonic art to manage to block the powerful blow. With a strong impact, his sword clashes against the troll's weapon. Using a deadly strike, he rips off the monster's arm in one go. After the attack, he falls to his knees on the creature's body. Meanwhile, his sword begins to glow with his new ability. Trying to control himself, he orders his sword to finally obey his command. Then a companion warns they're going to Plan B and will open a path. Observing the battle from afar, the two watch everything on a large screen. Questioning the difficulty, he can't believe this is really an E rank. Checking the data, the woman confirms it should be a simple E rank. Running forward, he advances, shouting with sword and shield in hands. Then a huge fire explosion happens, hitting all the monsters in front. Amid the flames, he thanks Wubin for the great help at that moment. While the mage responds, the warrior complains that the rocks won't stop coming. Charging at the trolls, he's stimulated by the smell of blood from the battle. With the monster's approach, part of his wild nature finally awakens. Covered in blood, he kneels in a defensive position against the enemies. Clenching his hand tightly, he seems to struggle to maintain control of the situation. Standing on top of the monster, he notices more rocks coming in his direction. Throwing more stones, the trolls follow the orders of their hooded leader. Gripping the shield firmly, he finally focuses his gaze on the true enemy. After much searching, he finally finds the boss commanding the field. Carrying rocks, the trolls advance while being attacked by the smaller monsters. He then realizes his role is to take all the attacks to clear the way. Surrounded by trolls, he defends a double strike with his sword and shield. With a spinning strike, he hits the monster that was right behind him. He then keeps spinning and striking the other monsters around him. When one of the monsters attacks, he braces himself for the next blow. A chain lightning hits the trolls, who start screaming in pain. Focused on the battle, the mage keeps using his strikes to help the group. Warning about the boss, he says he'll handle the rest and to take aim. Looking at the hill, the mage turns to find his target. Then he remembers the hooded figure he saw before on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the archer shouts, calling out his younger brother's name. Grabbing a scroll, the mage prepares to use a spell he saved. Using a lightning spear, he launches his strongest strike at the enemy. The archer prepares, aiming multiple arrows at once at his target. With his bow wrapped in lightning, he gets ready to fire his strike. Concentrating his power, he focuses on a single point for his shot. Then the strike crosses the battlefield, carving a path through the monsters. With the massive impact, the arrow grazes past its main target. Hitting the ground, the strike passes through several of the trolls standing there. Meanwhile, the monster leader prepares for what's coming. With a quick movement, the creature raises its staff to protect itself. Using a thunder block, it holds the strike from both brothers. Smiling, the monster manages to nullify the duo's powerful combined strike. Complaining, the archer can't believe the monster blocked the attack. Annoyed, the mage complains that was his trump card in battle. After defending itself, the monster reveals its new form and its bones. Then a system window appears, announcing the 8th trial has begun. The monster then transcends its rank and becomes a C-rank creature. From now on, the monster will have murderous intent toward humans. The mission is to escape that world without any casualties on the team. Threatening the group, the monster says it will kill all humans. Realizing the situation, he prepares, because it won't be easy at all. Then the monster attacks the group with a powerful shadow spear strike. Surprised, the mage says that's third circle dark magic. The strike spreads, forcing all group members to fall back. Defending the attack, he braces for the impact of the powerful strike. He then advances, moving past the smaller monsters standing there. Using his shield, he prepares to hold the massive shadow spear. With a huge impact, he's hit and thrown far from the monster. The strike throws him to the ground, but he gets up quickly to continue. Running, he advances toward the enemies without hesitating for a second. With his eyes glowing, he activates a recovery aura for the group. Advancing toward the troll, he shouts, "They're going to Plan C." Yelling to fall back, he advances and attacks the monster with his sword. Plan C was to retreat to the cliff if Plan B failed, but now he needs to find a new way out for his entire group. Then the monster attacks again with its powerful dark magic spear. Surprised by the repeat, the group prepares for the new attack. The massive spear heads toward one of the group members. With his shield, he prepares to hold the strike's impact. Even with great strength, he struggles to hold the attack. Watching the group, the director says they did well, but they've reached the end. He continues, saying if they focus on him, the group will soon fall apart. Questioning the time, the director asks how long they've been fighting. With a serious expression, he keeps watching the battle unfold. Meanwhile, the group members keep fighting against the monsters. They all look pretty tired, but they keep fighting without giving up. Clenching his hand, the director seems increasingly tense about the situation. In another place, several bodies are covered by white sheets on the ground. In a flashback, he cries desperately, unable to contain his tears. Kneeling beside the body, he apologizes repeatedly to his beloved. In the hospital corridor, he promises he'll protect the person who's left. Lying in bed, young Wubin appears as he slowly recovers. With his son's face in focus, he reinforces his promise of protection. Returning to the present, the director continues watching everything with great seriousness. In battle, he charges forward and attacks one of the trolls with his sword. With the strike, he leaps over the monster and uses it as support. Meanwhile, he defends himself from the attacks of the goblins surrounding him. With a precise blow, he hits the creature that was attacking him from behind. The struck monster stands still as blood drips from its body. Seizing the chance, he strikes the other monster with the hilt of his sword. Suddenly, he's hit in the back by a goblin spear. The monster grins, preparing to launch a new dark attack. The strike advances, destroying everything and everyone in its path. Eyes wide, he braces for the incoming blow. With his shield, he defends against the attack, getting pushed backward. The powerful impact of the blow hits the ground, opening a massive crater. Fallen on the ground, blood begins to flow from his wounded leg. He then realizes that more than an hour of battle has already passed. At his limit, he worries about the stamina of his entire group. Concerned, he fears they might fail the test if they continue like this. Just then, a system window warns that a burn time has been applied. Not understanding, he wonders what this new power that emerged is. Attacking a goblin, he questions what just happened. With a spinning strike, he realizes he heard a voice in his head. Then he stops and hits a monster with a powerful blow to the head. The strike lands dead on, throwing the monster far away and defeating it. Spinning backward, he defends against another attack from the enemies. Eyes trembling, he feels the new strength flowing through his body. With the effect, his mental strength and resistance increased by 1 point. Surprised, he stares at his body and the new ability. He realizes that wasn't his imagination and that his stats increased. For each of the monsters, he has a golden chance to increase his stats. He then says that it doesn't matter if it's reward or punishment, he accepts it. With a smile, he says he'll take all the rewards like a dog. Rushing at the troll, he prepares for a new attack. With a strike, he hits the troll's foot, making it scream in pain. While fighting, he continues receiving bonuses to his strength and agility stats. Then he uses a sword technique for a deadly cut on the monster. With another bonus, he continues fighting against the monsters surrounding him. Seeing more goblins, he prepares for the attack coming ahead. Panting, he continues fighting and defending against the enemy's attacks. With another bonus, he smiles, feeling stronger and stronger. He says he couldn't be more grateful for the chance he received. Suddenly, the body of one of the monsters begins to melt on the ground. Out of mana, the mage says he's been using magic for over an hour. While the others fight, he coughs, realizing there are still many enemies. Worried, the warrior asks if the mage is okay and what happened. He explains it's mana exhaustion syndrome and that it's better to give up. Without saying anything, the mage just stares at the ground, exhausted. Thinking of his friends, he doesn't want to force them to suffer more. Rebuffing the mage, the warrior says their leader hasn't given up yet. Meanwhile, the leader continues bravely fighting against all the monsters. He then tells the mage to drink a potion and start meditating. Explaining it takes 3 minutes, he warns he'll be defenseless during that time. Then he advances with his axe, preparing to clear the way. With a powerful strike, he hits the ground and shatters it to pieces. Still fallen, the mage watches his companion fight with all his strength. Pointing his weapon, he promises no monster will get near him. With eyes full of tears, he prepares to follow the plan. Grabbing a potion, he prepares to recover all his mana. Drinking the liquid, he sits on the ground and begins to meditate. From afar, the warrior watches the mage while fighting the monsters. In disbelief, the director wonders if the mage has gone completely insane. Worried, the assistant asks if she should call the security team. He then says it's already over and they have nothing left to do. Irritated, he knows that if he stops the test now, Wubin wins the bet. With a determined look, he prepares to send the search team. But then he stops, thinking he can't break his son's stubbornness. He then says to let them proceed as they are and see what happens. Sitting on the ground, the mage continues meditating to recover his mana. Meanwhile, he continues defending the mage from the monsters approaching. He then says he'll watch to see how his son performs. Meanwhile, the group members continue fighting bravely against the monsters. With great strength, he grabs the mouth of one of the monsters attacking him. He then uses his shield to slam the ground and defend against the attack. A troll approaches, roaring and preparing for a powerful attack. With his shield, he braces himself on the ground to withstand the impact of the blow. Gritting his teeth, he tells himself he won't give up. He then shouts that he'll never give up, no matter what happens. With a strong strike, the troll hits the ground, but he dodges. Moving backward, he evades and prepares for the counterattack. He then uses the first form of his demonic sword technique. With human slaughter, the effect of the demonic blood art is activated. His attack power increases by 40% temporarily. With his eyes glowing, he prepares to use all his new power. His sword is enveloped by an energy, ready for the next strike. Surrounded by his aura, he prepares to attack all the monsters. With his eyes gleaming, he advances at high speed toward the enemies. With a single strike, he defeats all the monsters surrounding him. He continues advancing, defeating all the monsters that appear before him. He uses the monsters' bodies to propel himself and attack more. Dodging the blows, he moves with agility across the entire battlefield. Surprised, a goblin finds itself in danger beside its giant companion. Watching everything from afar, the director seems surprised by the scene he sees. He realizes that Kang-san is holding the front line alone. To him, it's as if he were a barrier against the waves of the sea. The monster leader observes everything with a serious and focused expression. Gasping, the warrior looks to the side with a surprised expression. Shouting Kang-san's name, he warns him to be careful of the attack. A fireball hits him, causing a massive explosion at the spot. Surprised by the attack, the director stands up to see what happened. Screaming in pain, he endures the fire attack hitting him. With a smile on his face, he seems to go mad from the pain he feels. Then the Guardian's will is activated, restoring his health and defense. His madness effect is removed, and he returns to his normal state. Kneeling on the ground, he tries to recover from the attack he suffered. Gasping, he leans on his shield, trying to stay on his feet. The director realizes the monster has changed its target to Kang-san. Surprised, the two young men realize the attacks are focused on him. Then all the monster's attacks concentrate on a single person. Warning he's going forward, he asks them to take care of Wubin. The other young man shouts not to worry and stick with the plan. With a blue aura, he prepares to protect his companions. Closing his eyes, the mage concentrates to recover his mana. He mentally asks for Wubin to recover a bit faster. Looking back, he notices the shadow of something approaching. The shadow of a troll emerges from above and prepares to attack. He's hit by a fireball, which throws him far away. Falling to the ground, he's attacked by several goblins at once. Meanwhile, one of the goblins is hit by an arrow in the back. Shouting Kang-san's name, the archer runs to help his friend. Getting close, he asks if his friend is okay and calls out to him. Lying on the ground, he complains that his body isn't responding anymore. Meanwhile, the mage continues meditating to recover his mana. He focuses completely on the flow of mana running through his body. Hearing a sound, he opens his eyes and realizes what's happening. He remembers the promise his friend made to protect him in battle. He also sees Kang-san holding the front line against the monsters. Meanwhile, the archer controls the formation so they don't go too deep. Thanks to them, He wasn't wounded, even with his mana depleted. He then realizes he also wants to be someone who protects others, someone who keeps their promises, even if it costs their own life. In a flashback, he remembers when he was a child crying in fear. With a serious expression, he seems to remember a difficult moment. He recalls his mother fallen on the ground, surrounded by soldiers. Like his mother who protected him, he also wants to be a protector. Back at the battle, he realizes the monsters have stopped moving. He wonders why the monsters aren't attacking the group anymore. Surprised, he turns back and sees something that leaves him astonished. Amidst the flames, the mage appears with a new and powerful aura.